2025 at 6 p.m. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Supervisor File.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Hayward.
Here.
Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Nalamothu.
Here.
And Trustee Tedder.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we're going to open it up to the board and for public announcements. The board members or individuals in the audience may make a statement containing information about a recent or upcoming event. We'll start with the public first. Does anybody want any public announcements? No? Okay. Online, doesn't look like there's anyone on there except for one person. The board, does anybody on the board have any public announcements? If not, I do. I just want to say that we have been in constant contact with RCOC on the Bluegrass, and as of this point in time, they do not have a hard and fast date, but the projected date is November 27th for them to come out. We can't get them to move one way or the other. They said they're going to be tying it to the opening of the Dixie southbound 75 ramp. So they're tying those two things together before they will move them. I do also have a little announcement, though, because Jonathan Smith, the city manager for Clarkston, city of the village of Clarkston, did say that they are opening up Miller Road, I believe, today or tomorrow at the latest. So, yes.
I just want to quickly mention event going on this Saturday at the Brady Lodge, the winter market, I believe it. Holiday market. This Saturday at the Brady Lodge in Baycourt Park.
Okay, excellent. All right, if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the board and public announcements. Public comments. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss? If you do, please come up to the podium. You will have 5 minutes. We'll need your name and address, and I will let you know when 4 minutes are up so you can wrap things up. Any public comments? Please.
Yes, there's a problem out on Clintonville Road.
Excuse me, name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Linda Turner, 4919 Walden Road.
Okay.
Okay? We have a problem out on Clintonville with a damaged culvert. And I've called the Road Commission and the Drain Commission and Eagle, and nobody seems to have any responsibility with regard to this damaged culvert, which is going to cause a lot of flooding. Because the water can't get through. It's part of do you know what I'm talking about or no?
I mean, I know what a culvert is, and we're not really supposed to respond either from the board to.
Well, who is responsible for the culvert? Because it needs to be fixed or we're gonna have flooding big time. It's that Sashabaw Creek, Clinton River watershed over there. It goes under the access road to the power line.
Okay.
It's under that road that accesses the power line. So my question is, who's responsible for that?
So technically, we're not supposed to engage, but I will share this with you, that when you step away, someone in the back is going to come up and talk to you.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See who does it. They're talking to each other.
Any other public comments? No? Okay. Any public comments for online? Nope. Any public comments from the board? Nope. Then we will end public comments. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to have public hearing for the 2026 Community Development Block Grant. To go through this will be our Parks and Rec Director, Lisa Christensen.
Good evening. All right, so this is public hearing for program year 2026 of our Community Development Block Grant application. So Supervisor, if you'd like to open the public meeting.
Well, I was going to let you talk first, and then I was going to
Oh, okay.
public comments.
Perfect. So this is program year 2026 monies. And Oakland County is projecting that Independence Township will receive $72,306, of which 15% can be allocated to public service. So we break that down into our senior services through the Senior Community Center. And we're estimating for program year 2026, $7,346. And then we will allocate $3,500 to Clarkston Area Youth Assistance. The remaining $61,460 will go toward minor home repair at the Senior Community Center. And our minor home repair program benefits homeowners who need safety-related home repairs, in addition to meeting specific income requirements. Eligible projects include furnaces, hot water heaters, roofs, and assistance with wells and other needed repairs. We have a maximum grant available to each applicant of $5,000 that we allocate for those funds. We will see these funds not until January of 2027. We will always work a year behind with our CDBG funding. Are there any questions specifically?
Okay, so that was a little bit longer than I thought you were gonna, I thought you were
Okay.
gonna give us a little
Sorry.
synopsis first, but okay, so I'm
Okay.
gonna back up the open public meeting at 5:05.
Okay.
but with everything you just said.
Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry, open public meeting. Anybody on the board?
I
Yes.
just have a quick, did you have a question? Who does the home repairs? Do you have like a list of licensed contractors that they have to go through so you know that it's?
Correct. We have several that we work regularly with through the senior center.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anyone in the public have any, in the audience, I should say? No? Anybody else on the board? No? Anyone online? Okay, then I'm gonna close the public hearing at 6:06. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentations, we don't have any. Carryover agendas, there aren't any. Consent agendas, we have requests to approve the Board of Trustees' regular meeting minutes of October 21st, 2025, and special meeting minutes of October 23rd, 2025. Second item is request to ratify the October 28th, 2025 check run, including ACH, for $1,373,079.25. Approve the November 12th, 2025 check run, including ACH, $928,436.62. Ratify the October 24th, 2025, November 7th, 2025 payroll for $351,117.12 and $360,285.30 respectively, and the September 2025 EFT ACH wire activity for $535,178.67. The third item is to request to approve the 2025 budget amendment number 24, which is the increase to Parks and Recs recreation classes revenue and expenditures. Can I get a motion to approve the consent items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Items removed from the consent agenda, there isn't any. For regular business, again, each of you will have an opportunity, if you would like to come up and address the issue, I will call you up. At that point in time, you'll give your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes to talk. I will let you know when 4 minutes is up, so you can wrap things up. And also, please note that the board is not supposed to be responding to any of the dialogue that's happening up at the podium. With that being said, the first item on the agenda is request to approve the PY 2026 Community Development Block Grant. And again, we will have the director, Lisa Christensen.
So I gave all my information at the public hearing.
Okay.
But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. And we have the motion broken down into 4 separate motions, piece by piece, as a requirement through Oakland County that we've provided for you in the MAIF for anyone who would like to.
Okay. All right, any comments or questions from the audience? No? Online? No? All right, so I'll close that part of it. Any comments or questions from the board? No? Getting all pretty easy here. Okay, I'm going to close those then. Can I get a motion for motion A to approve the program?
I move to approve program year 2026 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG application certification between the County of Oakland and the Township of Independence for the total amount of $72,306. and direct the supervisor to electronically sign program year 2026 Community Development Block Grant affidavit of compliance and conflict of interest certification as the authorized representative of the township, and direct the senior division supervisor to process the application.
Support. All right, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Can I get a motion B, please?
I'll move to approve the allocation of the 2026 Community Development Block Grant funding for housing, minor home repair, program account numbers 172170-31227 in the amount of $61,460.
Second.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Motion carried.
All right, can I get a motion for C, please?
I'll move to approve the allocation of the 2026 Community Development Block Grant funding for public services, senior services, program account number 172160-731712 in the amount of $7,346.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, Madam Clerk, please?
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And finally, can I get a motion D? Tedder.
I'll move to approve the allocation of the 2026 Community Development Block Grant funding for public services, youth services, Clarkston Area Youth Assistance, program account number 172160-732185 in the amount of $3,500.
Support.
Can I get a roll call, Madam Clerk, please?
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Hayward.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
very
just a quick note for the clerk's office and supervisor's office, we have a tight turnaround on the signing of those, so tomorrow I'll follow up so we can make sure we get those done by the end of the week.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, the next item on the agenda is closed session, budget session, study session. So we are going to be doing a budget session. During this process, I will be walking through it for those that, I think you all had it sitting there. We're gonna go through an agenda down this order here. That way, we have all the directors, our department heads here. We'll be able to walk them down through here instead of keeping them here all night. We'll just deal with each one and release them as we go through. But with that, I'm going to jump down below. I'm gonna ask Renee Herbert to join me, and we will be calling people up as we go through it. And for anybody who got the budget, you'll notice it was really small type, so we kept it consistent by having it really small up there. Too.
Mission accomplished.
Before I get started, I would like to read a little something here that I prepared for this. Good evening, board members, and before we begin, I want to start with two very important acknowledgments. First, to my department heads, I thank you. The amount of time and commitment you put into preparing the 2026 budget was exceptional. Each of you went through every single line item literally, coming back with recommendations ranging from tens of thousands of dollars to a few $100s in savings. That level of scrutiny shows the seriousness in which you approach this work, and it demonstrates to our residents that every dollar is being evaluated with care. Thank you for sitting through hours, and I do mean hours, of discussion with Renee Herbert, Jennifer Spiegel, and myself. I know it couldn't have been fun, wink, just in case you guys couldn't see the wink. But you stayed in it, you challenged assumptions, and you signed off on your budget with full commitment. The clarity and focus that you give us going into 2026 is invaluable. Second, to the Board of Trustees, thank you for taking on the mountain of material we placed in front of you. I fully recognize that reading the 414 pages of slightly offline numbers and small print that test even the best pair of eyes and glasses was not easy. Even with the nearly 4 weeks to review, ask questions, and digest the information, it can be daunting. For each of you takes your fiduciary responsibility to the township seriously, and it shows. We've already noted changes and improvements that will be made to the format for the 2027 budget based on your feedback, and we welcome even more constructive ideas to continue refining the process. Tonight, Renee, Jennifer, and department heads and I look forward to walking through the budget with you in a clear, organized, and collaborative way. But before we begin, I want to highlight just a couple of noteworthy points. One, the 2025 budget, which is projected to come under budget by more than 800,000, is still larger than what we're asking for in 2026. For 2026, we are cutting roughly 5%, or approximately 441,000 out of the budget for 26, while still projecting the general fund to grow by another 833,000. And we are achieving this despite a decrease in the shared revenue, which from the state, which came unexpectedly in the fourth quarter, and the fact that the board had the courage to freeze the operating millage for 26 based on 25's rate. Second of all, I want to point out that transparency is still a priority for this administration, and that at every level, federal, state, and local budget often turns into a game of where I consider to be where's Waldo, right? Hidden projects, buried line items, things we discover after the fact. That is not how we are going to operate here, at least not from Renee's nice perspective. There are no new supervisor projects and no new personnel no new personnel in this budget. Okay? Over the next several months, over the probably really the 5 to 7 next board meetings, I will be bringing forward MACE for individual projects one at a time. The reason that the approach allows is it gives the board and the public the time to clearly understand each project, each revenue expectations, and each associated cost. So there's no surprises, no buried line items, and there's total transparency brought on by a vote at the end of each one of these by this Board of Trustees. This evening I will begin by going through the budget summary and then going through the budget presentation list here that you all have in front of you, and for the Q&A on any particular item you have. After each department's question and answer session, I will release department heads so they can go home. Again, thank you all, department heads and trustees, for the serious and professional way you approach this budget. It reflects a township that is disciplined, transparent, and committed to long-term stability. All right, so let's begin. The first thing I would like to do is to go through, and for those of you who brought your binders, I would like to start off with the third page in. As I noted, page numbers will be a part of the next one, so it's much easier for references purposes. This here gives all the different funds in the order. It gives the 25, what was on the amended budget, and what the requested is for 26, along with any changes in it. Any negatives usually refers to a reduction, and then the percentage of that reduction to the budget for that department. So to go through this on a high level for those who are not going to want to stay for a little bit longer in depth going through here, I just thought we'd run through some of the highlights here. So for revenue, we're looking at a 4% increase from 9.6 million to 10.06, or a $387,000 increase. Again, remember, that is with the fact that we lost over 100,000 in state revenue sharing, and for the fact that we froze the operating millage at last year, 2025's rate, even though we could have increased it for 2026. Some of the bigger highlights are the Township Board. We have a reduction on the expenses there. At any point in time, what I'd like to do is just kind of go through these kind of quick, and then we can, when we get to these particular areas in that list, we can pop in and ask more questions. So just kind of let me get through them if you would, please. So we're looking there at reduction in the Township Board of 188,000. The supervisor department, we're looking at a reduction around 45. Clerks 39. The rest are kind of small until we get down to the assessing. That obviously is because of the fact that we outsourced the assessing department. So that was the net savings and expenses on that. Elections, you'll notice that there was a big increase there, and that is because next year there's going to be a full election. Therefore, the costs go up. It's cyclical every other year. So that kind of why that looks a little disproportionate. All the rest of them are pretty small, except for that we get down to the building. Building did see an increase, will see an increase, because that part of the reorganization that we voted on a couple of board meetings ago regarding the consolidation of the planning and the building department, this now reflects that consolidation. So the part of the planning salaries are in there. There is some of the consolidation also with the assessing people going in there. And there is also a new hire that we had that came in at the, not the beginning of last year, but last year, that now we're gonna see a full annualized aspect to the salary there. Planning and zoning, obviously, that is a decrease because of that consolidation that we went through with the planning and building department. So some of those salaries did get moved up into the building department. Otherwise, that's pretty much straight salary reduction. That would be the planning director, that would be the code enforcement full-time and code enforcement part-time. Okay. Outgoing, operations out, we're looking at, total appropriations, we're looking at, if we jump down there, a savings of $443,000, or roughly 4.58% over 2025's budget, which is still projected to come in under. Okay. If we look at the fund balances, you'll notice that, the good story continues, is that you look at the fund balance, we are looking actually at it going up by about $833,000. So through that savings, we're gonna be able to also increase that fund balance overall. I wanna caution everybody before we get too far along in this, is that while 26 looks good, I think it's very important to remember that at the end of 26, or during the contract year of 26, some of you have probably noticed that legal fees went up, or projected to possibly go up. We have a renewal on the fire contract, and we have the renewal on the contract here at the township. So those two union contracts are gonna be coming up. With those two union contracts, all bets are kind of off on what those dollar amounts are gonna result in increases, benefits, those types of things. So when we start getting into 27 and 28, I will be forthright and say that I told my directors and department heads, don't focus too heavily on those. We'll probably just carry over most of the operating expenses as we go, but with the fact that wages are typically about, take off the table the capital improvement programs, is over 50% of the actual operating budget. So when we have that large of a percentage, and it's an unknown, we're really kind of a little bit of a crapshoot on what things are gonna go. We're just gonna try to make sure that, we have some target to hit, but this year for 26, it's extremely important that we are good stewards of the money, and we're reducing costs at every possible point, so that we can have that reserve, depending on how things go for the two union contracts, plus the police millage is also up. So we're gonna have to renew that for 27 as well. However, while we just use the normal same forecasting that we use for the police revenue from the millage for 27, 28, we did put in actual contract expenses that we received from the county. So those numbers are reflected in the 27, 28 years that you will see in your budget. Tonight, we're gonna be focused on 26. But I just wanna make sure that we understand that there are some longer term things here that should be taken into consideration. The board should be taking into consideration when we look at this budget. Okay? Moving on, if we look at the Parks and Rec, which is really probably in the town hall, but most of it's probably the Parks and Rec, we're looking at about $100,000 decrease there. Some of it is, kind of smaller stuff. We got rid of Midwest Strategy, the tri-party thing, so that kind of took care of that. The fire fund, there are some CIP things in there that we're gonna be looking at doing, and that's gonna be increasing that, but that money all comes out of the fire fund itself, not out of the general fund. Get into the capital projects for the fire, again, we're looking at some reduction. I think last year we had a fire engine and an EMS unit, and that kind of drove a lot of this that we're not anticipating for next year. Police fund, again, pretty much straightforward across the board, not much excitement there. Parks and Rec, we actually went through, we saw some decreases on the Parks and Rec side. Lisa, Christensen, the director of the Parks and Rec, sat down and with her team, and due to some of the things that she went through and talked to her different departments, we found that there was some one-time purchases in 25 that will not be reoccurring in 26, and because of some of the labor savings that she was able to capture on in '25, it's being reflected now more heavily in '26. Okay, and then, Sashma, the drain funds, these are all smaller dollars, but everything counts. CDBG, again, we're looking at $186 difference there. The safety path, again, they have not come forward yet necessarily with a particular major projects. I know there's a lot of things that are sitting out there, but as they come due, they're gonna bring it forward. A lot of it's are taking consideration easements and all that have to be gotten, which is an unknown, and at that point, it wasn't make sense to forecast, because there's one particular section, for example, that while the paving or the cementing of it is probably, under normal circumstances, that would be a big chunk of the overall project, but this one particular piece of property was paid a huge amount of money in the past for a very small little bit that could actually, that person could hold us up and say that, well, I want the same kind of dollars, which now means that 100% of what the paving could cost or the cementing would cost could be what that person's looking for the easement. So it may or may not come to fruition. So those types of things we're gonna deal with more when they actually have hard numbers to actually deal with. So that's kind of the safety path. North Sashua, again, we're talking smaller dollars. The DDA, we're looking at, some projection increases there on the revenue. And we're also looking at increases, because now the DDA is gonna be in more of a position to start spending more of its money, but that's in their budget there, so that's why you're gonna see that increase there. The sewer fund, so here's an important thing to note, and I'm gonna skip those two for a second, and I wanna go down to, Walters Lake, that's, again, small dollars. If you look at the enterprise as a whole, that means the township as a whole, we're seeing that revenue is gonna increase by 3.61%. Again, that's with the fact that the operating millage was frozen at the 2025 rate, and that we lost the state revenue sharing. And the overall expenses for the township are gonna decrease by 4.9%, or $3 million. I don't know, and I don't wanna talk down to anybody in here, so I just wanna make sure that I'm gonna work from the premise that you're not accountants, and you're not quite sure exactly what depreciation is and how it works on an expense form and the budget. Depreciation is a non-cash transaction. You've already spent the cash, for lack of a better term. If you went out and bought a truck for $100,000, let's say, the IRS lets you depreciate that over a period of time. So let's just make it simple and say it's a 10-year level depreciation. And they're gonna, in year one, you will write that check for $100,000. It's gone. Years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're allowing you to put on your budget that you have an expense, which looks like we're increasing expenses, of that $10,000. That's not cash that you spent. It is not coming out of the general fund. You already spent it. Depending on where you are in that cycle, could be at minimum a year, or it could have been 9 years ago, okay? So when we look at that, we look at the depreciation for both sewer and water, that amounts to just about $5 million. So $5 million of this $6.9 million, that if you look in that second column bottom, is just paper write-off. It's not cash, okay? The other thing is that I want to point out, is that if you look at the CapEx, the capital improvement projects between sewer and water, which obviously when they do stuff, it comes in at a pretty big chunk. Not everything on that CapEx for sewer and water were needed this year, but because of the, or for 26, when I say this year from now on, I'm referencing 26, they were not necessarily needed to be done at that moment in time. They were just things that, since we had the excess funds and things were rolling pretty smoothly and good, that we decided to spend the money at this point in time instead of waiting till we got a hole in an alleyway. Okay, so of that, there is approximately 11 million in CapEx between sewer and water. So not all of that could we have deferred, but at least easily half of that we could have deferred if we wanted to, but it just didn't make sense to. But between those two, if we would have done that, then we would have actually seen where this 6.9 would have gone to a positive number. So we would have actually came in well under the budget. I didn't do it that way because I didn't want to play games. I didn't want it to look like we were trying to play the games to make the numbers look better than what they are. I just wanted to explain to you how depreciation works to make sure that you understand that it is just a paper loss, it's not cash coming out of the general fund. Okay? So overall, fantastic story I think we have here. I think, the board has done a great job of managing the budgets over the years past. This is really kind of just an operating budget overall, with the exception of the sewer and water and their CapEx projects, in the parks and recs have a couple CapEx. Otherwise, it's pretty much just a mirror, as I'm sure you all noticed, from last year. Very little difference. When we're sitting there talking about the dollar amounts we're talking, you're looking at, a total expenditure of $59 million, and we're talking about 5% difference. We're not talking about huge amounts of money. And I think you'll probably notice that in the budget. When we looked at line items, you saw something down $500 here. I think there's even one spot where it's $90, all the way up to, a couple $100,000. But for those were for more of the big departmental changes, consolidation that we went through. So I think that from anybody sitting from the outside looking at this, I think they cannot help but look at this and say that you guys have done a great job of managing and taking care of the finances for the township. Okay. Before I move on, and just, I may not be able to answer your question right at this particular moment, but I definitely want to make note of it. So when we come to that particular section, we can dive into a little bit deeper if we need to. And just so we're clear, that'll be Renee. She'll be doing most of the diving. Any questions or comments on the summary aspect? No? Okay. All right, as you know that you went through, again, every department head went through, they did sign off on the budget, and they are committed to maintaining that. One of the things I think is extremely important to also understand is that, obviously, I have a reputation of wanting to keep expenses down, increase revenue. I know we're government, I'm still working through that part about that we're not supposed to be making money, but I do believe that any projects or anything else should become revenue neutral, or at least expense neutral, in the sense of the fact that we shouldn't be expending money if we don't have it coming in. To that end, there are two ways to adjust the budget going forward. There's modify a budget going forward. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm talking down to you. I just want to make sure it's clear for the record and everybody else who hasn't had the opportunity to sit up there and listen to this before, is that you have adjustments which are typically not brought to the board, and they are just things that we took money from Paul to pay Peter inside of a department, computer supplies versus office supplies. We make a little adjustment there type of things. Then there's amendments. Amendments are usually big items, big changes. Like when we consolidated the planning and the building, there became amendments to the building department's budget and everything else, because there's big changes that are going on through that part of it. Those always come to the board. I explained to them that part of what I'm gonna be looking at, because I looked at these and when we were going through it, they will all tell you that I constantly kept on asking, why was there so many adjustments? In my opinion, the adjustments only come around because of the fact that there wasn't as much focus on the budget that I think was probably warranted. So I look at it now, and this is why we literally went line by line. We have two department heads, if you will, directors up here that went through their departments. They'll attest to the fact, and I think the two of you came over for the board budget. We literally went line by line and discussed each line. So from that standpoint, I have a high degree of confidence that when they signed off on it, they completely understood and agreed to, and by the way, I did not strong arm any of these individuals. They just pretty much came back through and said, okay, we can adjust this and this. Without a doubt, I might have asked questions, why are we spending so much on this, or why are we spending that on that? I think even occasionally I ask, it seems like we should be spending more, but at the end of the day, we settled there. And I did tell them that part of the review for their performance in '26 will be based on the number of adjustments that need to be done in the department. The amendments are really more what I would consider, again, those big item changes that need to come to the board. To me, the only two reasons why you ever do amendments and bring it to the board, one is because you could not foresee COVID. You could not see the recession. You could not foresee something that, the county, for example, on the assessing, the fact that they jacked the rates up so high, so fast. right? You could have heard rumors and gossips and all that, but we don't function on that. We function on facts. And without having much time, we didn't know that in '24 for '25, an amendment would have had to have been done. Same thing with like with the police contract. Those types of surprises, you just can't predict. So therefore, that's why amendments would be okay. The second reason is for transparency. And that's why it goes back to the fact that none of my projects that I have that I would like to bring forward to the board over for 2026, I'm gonna be bringing individually, so we can look at, here is exactly what it's gonna be, here's the revenue, here's the cost, here's the reorganization, if any of that is gonna be entailed. It will be all brought together in one complete 360 packet, and therefore we can have a great in-depth conversation about it and not be overwhelmed by 441 or 414 pages. Okay? So those are the two reasons why we do amendment. We should not be seeing amendments for any other reason in any other department. Okay? So from that standpoint, I would hope then, I told my department heads that I would not expect to see those coming forward. If not, if there is, it better fall under transparency or one that was completely unforeseen. Okay? Because I do realize that, you know, the old joke, right? How do you make God laugh? You create a plan. Okay? So I do realize that life happens. But that is kind of the basis of what we set up and we started having these conversations. And that's why we spent as much time as we did going through. Okay? All right, we are going to start off with the police, and I'm just going to start going down and asking if there's any questions that you have about it. If not, then we'll move down to the next one, so on and so forth until we're through this. So on the police, any questions? Nope, okay, good. I mean, in all expectation, I would imagine this will be going relatively smooth because a lot of you submitted questions throughout the last 3-4 weeks, and I think you gave me answers. I do believe that, you know, there'll be some things that you want to share more publicly, and that's fine, that's great, we fully expect that. So don't be shy. Fire, just so we're clear on the sheet too, where it says binder tab, it is tab, but then there's page numbers on there afterwards. In the packet online, if you're computer savvy enough to have that, we did end up putting page numbers on the budget that ultimately got put into the packet. So it becomes a little bit easier. I know that I see some highlights on trustee Tedder's over there. If it's easier to reference by a page number, we can go to that and dive in. If not, just give us the tab and the GL accounts will get there. On the, chief, you want to come on up? So for each of the headers here, when we get to it, we'll have the department head come up and sit, and that way, if you have any questions, great. If not, then we'll move on to the next one. So on the fire budget, is there any questions? Or comments, I guess, questions or comments?
I mean, now that we got him here, I just want, Chief, we have staffed up some. Is there a projected year that you see another staff up coming?
We're planning in the beginning of 2026 to add 3 firefighters to the department, 1 on each shift. Moving forward, we'll just kind of keep evaluating the service demands versus how many people we have on a department and kind of stair step it as we need, one way or the other.
What are we budgeted, what are we set up for? Do you have funds to gear up in the projected budget now for
Yeah.
2026?
Yep.
That is included in your budget, the 3 additional
Okay.
firefighter paramedics.
And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get through all 400 pages, but I delved into the ones that were
Okay.
Fair enough.
more in my field or more that I
Yep.
was, and then I
Yeah.
expect, I knew you guys would be here to answer, so.
Yeah.
So, and I should clarify something too, because it was probably a little misleading now that I hear this part of it. When I said there wasn't any new employees, I meant that are coming out of the general fund, not out of the fire fund. So that was a point of clarification. I should have made that a little bit clearer, sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the fire budget? How about on the fire CIP? All right, if there's not, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Independence Television Fund. We have Mr. Elke who heads that up. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of the reductions are result of continuing decreases in PEG fees.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So, which is unfortunate, but not a lot we can do at this point.
It's not a Independence problem, but a everywhere problem,
Right,
so.
right.
Any other questions? No? You guys all right?
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Safety Path Fund.
Mr. McKee.
Well, just to reiterate, the million reduction, you were saying that it's because we haven't procured the necessary easements to expend the money that was previously budgeted?
Yes.
Okay, because I know the maintenance, and care of the safety paths, requires, as you can see from the budgets passed, millions of dollars, and I know it's a value to the community. So right now, it's really, we're pulling it out of the budget because, in essence, we're not ready to spend the money. Is that for the safety path?
Yeah, for 26.
For 26.
Yeah, yeah. The
But that
easement
could-
acquisitions and things like that, it just makes it difficult
But-
sometimes to spend it. So.
Okay, but it could be next year where you're coming back and saying, we need to put that million back into the budget.
Yes. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, it will probably come back in, for example, and the one example I gave you would be, here's obviously, the Safety Path Committee makes the determination first of, do we want to spend that kind of money on an easement? They don't have the final authority, that's an advisory committee, so then it would come back to the Board of Trustees to decide if they want to actually spend the money out of the Safety Path Commission, fund. But yeah, so we'll definitely bring those back. And again, because some of the dollar amounts could be, hopefully, just, hey, make my landscaping look pretty and,
Right.
do some shading there. Or it could be, I want $250,000.
Right.
So, until we know what that is, we didn't want to put something in there that was just gonna overinflate things.
Sure.
Because I also, just so we're clear on that, I looked at it and I explained to all the department heads that coming under budget significantly for lack of better planning, and I would say that like the assessing department was not a lack of better planning. I would say the assessing department came about because of outside driving force that we could not have anticipated. But I look at it and when I sit there and we go through these things and all of a sudden you see a budget that, like this year, we're gonna see some huge savings coming way in under the budget. To me, that's not good either. Because those are dollars that we lost the opportunity to utilize somewhere else. So there's an economic opportunity cost by over budgeting and underspending. And I don't want to do that. So let's go through from everything from the treasury and how they invest the money to how we could be looking at other additional projects. So it's just important to me, and I explained to the department heads, that there's an over, 5% or something like that, but after that, I don't want to see that, because it's detrimental either way. Other questions on the safety path? Yes.
Maybe not specifically for the safety path, so what I'm starting to understand, so is it possible, because you had mentioned that you didn't budget anything for your projects, you want to bring them, we'll say, à la carte?
Yes.
Is this expectation for all the department heads as well?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, they went through their CIP and their capital improvement programs are all laid out. It's just like it has been in years past.
Okay.
Okay, just the ones that, and among the ones I'm gonna be looking at are pretty big dollar ones that I would like to be doing for 26, and I just think it would make more sense and warranted to have them individually scrutinized.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the safety path? Okay, let's jump down to sewer, as long as we still have the director up here. Any questions on the sewer?
I'm gonna ask, I think with the stuff that we've put in place to be more proactive, that, unless we have a major event, you're not expecting anything to just, that's usually when we have an issue, if something major goes wrong that you didn't plan on, but we've been very proactive in looking at things ahead of time with those cameras and all that, that I think you feel confident that it's,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's just, after the SAW grant that we had that we really analyzed and we evaluated the whole sewer system. At that time, we were, you know, the Department of Public Works is under direction to be aggressive and fix things. And we've put millions of dollars into repairs, and the system overall is in good shape, very good shape. You know, we want to continue with our maintenance program and things like that, but you know, station improvements is a big thing. We don't have a bunch of lift stations, but we want to get those out of 1970s model and get them into rehab to where they're going to be good for another 40, 50 years. So I'm confident we're in very good shape.
Any other questions on the sewer? How about the water? Okay, we'll move on then to the Sashabaw Drain Maintenance Fund. Again, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but. No? Okay. No, sir, at this point in time? Thank you.
I'll stick around. I got a couple more on the bottom
Yeah.
there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, we're gonna do the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Fund. And for that, we're gonna bring up Director Lisa Christensen. So we'll open up for questions.
I'll start.
Trustee Morocco.
I guess my major concern is the deletion of of her personnel staff that, and under the understanding that it's the deputy director's position that's
Yes.
not being refunded. So I do have a concern with that. I think that, you know, she's relatively new to the director's position. She's got the biggest department, the most employees, the highest turnover, you know, in care of the seniors. We just did park expansions. I just don't think that you know, that we can maintain the ratings and standards and, you know, award-winning parks that we've had with, I can't understand how that we can do without that person. And my concerns are not, it has nothing to do with, you did the position that we're eliminating for, I don't know how many years, but quite a while. And I know how hard you worked at it when we had even, a couple, you know, when we had a director, like Derek, and we were winning awards doing stuff. And I think that I would feel more comfortable if you don't feel like you need the person now, that we allocate, that we have the funds there available for you in 2026 to fill that position. However you may see it needs to be filled. Maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 1 person. But I do have concerns about that, the access of the senior staff, the Parks and Rec staff, you know, all of the things, having access to just 1 person in that level of leadership, I think could affect the services that we're providing and the level of service that we're providing. So that was one of my biggest concerns, that like with the fire, whatever, I would feel more comfortable if there was money there and you somehow feel that you don't need it, but I also don't want you to be the first one to come for a big amendment, you know, because we need that extra staffing, and I believe that you do. So I would be in favor of having some funding in there to however you feel, or having the understanding that that wouldn't be a detrimental amendment if it needed to come up. You know, I don't want to hamstring you or hinder you because of trying to stay in the budget you're in. So that's probably my biggest thing, is I spend time in the parks. You know, now we've expanded Clinton Wood. We've taken on a rental facility to a large scale. You know, the parks is growing, and I don't think that we can afford to lose an upper level management position. So I'll leave it at that.
Would you like to go first?
Sure, I can
Okay.
go for it, yep. So no, I appreciate your comments, Sam, and for me, It's more about focusing on identifying the right role for the department, right? It may not have to be a deputy director role or the role that I held previously. I'm very aware of that role, what that role entailed, the skill set it took, which I am able to absorb some of that into my role as director because I have a different skill set than maybe some of our previous directors. So for me, I've looked at it as like maybe a strategic pause to take a look at what is the right fit for the department. Where do we see the need? As you mentioned, it might not be in a deputy traditional role that we've traditionally filled. So I've always looked at it that way, that as a new director coming in, I want to take some time and observe as a whole so to make a more strategic decision that best fits the needs of the department, the community, the growth.
Is that a follow-up?
Yeah.
If not, I got to see someone over here in the corner of my eye.
Can I
with their
follow
hands
up with that, just real quick? The other thing that and I don't know the layering of how you guys work, but, and maybe you can just answer that and that'll satisfy me. Like, we've got the union employees and then we've got the we've got upper level management employees. Is that bridge being broken between the direct supervision of the union employees, or do we need is that eliminating of that position, does that eliminate the direct oversight of our union employees? And can you handle
Sure.
all of the union, non-union by,
I mean, another leadership body, I think, would always be more effective, right? But the way we're structurally set up in our direct reports, no, I don't think there's been a disruption to that process at all. We have a supervisor overseeing our seniors division. I'm overseeing the recreation division and the parks division. And we also have like a lead union employee who also assists with the parks division.
Okay.
Trustee Hayward.
Yep. I just have, I guess my biggest concern is just recently, you've had to step into the director's position when you weren't a director. Because one, somebody had left the position, and then the second time was an injury to the person that you ended up eventually replacing. Do you feel confident that there's somebody that could step up if, God forbid, anything were to happen to you, or you had to step away from the job for
Absolutely.
a period of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a very strong middle management team.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be my only concern about not having, because
Continuation
obviously,
plan.
because
Yeah.
obviously that's where you came from, right? So
Mhm.
it was easy to put you into that position and handle those things while, your predecessors
Yeah.
weren't able to do their job, so.
My perception of the situation is very similar. She's kind of a little bit on a smaller scale of what I'm doing. And what I mean by that is that she has several different department heads, if you will, under her. And one of the things with all my department heads is I give them, from day one, I give them the analogy of a bunch of dominoes in a gym. And I said, if you can't tell me with a 99% accuracy what domino, if I come in and knock over a domino in your section, all the dominoes that are being impacted, then you're not doing your job. You don't know what you don't know, and that's a problem. The other thing is that I've told them that they all need to be able to do is at least have an anticipation of around 70% accuracy. Once that domino leaves their department, where does it go? The idea and the reason behind that is that in the event that if this was a private company, if this was not an elected position, any one of the directors would have a solid enough basis to understand what's going on an enterprise level, not only their department, but an enterprise level, to be able to step up and fill these shoes. That's kind of the way I've always built things. That's kind of the way I've been talking here. And that's the same in strategy. You may have said it differently, but I think ultimately at the end, it's very similar type strategy and approach to making sure that in the event that something should happen, there is ready bodies with knowledge to be able to step in and fill that void. Any other questions or comments about it? Trustee Beck.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just generically speaking, I think this department is among the ones with taking the biggest haircut. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I would say that's
Yeah.
probably pretty close.
Yeah. That being said, this is also, I think, one of the most tangible benefits to the residents in terms of visibility. I think Parks, Recreation, and Seniors is front and center as when you think about what values are there to paying my taxes in Independence Township. I think about my kids playing kitty kicker, and I think about the Little League baseball, and I think about now that I'm aged in, participatory in the senior center and so forth. So I'm not gonna micromanage what's going on here, because I know everyone's, was asked to sharpen their pencil. But I need a level of reassurance that we're not gonna overstress our staff to the point where they're gonna be leaving, pursuing other opportunities to save X amount of dollars, in this case, $310,000, which is $10 a resident. I need a level of reassurance that our residents are not going to be sacrificing the quality of parks, recreation, and senior services, because, again, frankly, that's one of the things that I believe township residents look to the most when they think about, what do you value about your township? Oh, we got great parks, we've got a great senior center. And I also know, as the liaison to the Parks, Recreation, and Seniors Advisory Board, that there's a strong contemplation for a parks millage. So there's no question that in some people's eyes, there's a need for more revenue, be it maybe heavy slanted on the senior side, maybe it's slanted toward more green space for more recreation. I don't know what those answers are, but I guess what I'm boiling it all down to is I don't want to see us trying to wish upon the residents and voting in support of a millage when we're taking a pretty big haircut here. So, in parting thoughts is if there's a level of reassurance here that our residents aren't going to be feeling a sacrifice or hit to their services, be it seniors, be it family programming, be it parks and recreation, then of course I'll take your word for it.
Sure, from my lens, no program cuts at all. So a lot of it was cleaning up, some over budgeting in some areas, some things that were one-time budgets last year when comparing the budget to last year, cleaning up some GLs. Heavy in the payroll because of the deputy director position. Part-time Clintonwood, for example, our staff, we were just over budgeting in that and you could see the pattern for several years where we just weren't hitting that number, no need to keep that in there. Our operational budget overall for programs and services, with some little tweaks here and there, is remaining the same. And everything that our division leaders asked for because they're trying something new or want to add a service or a program was all included.
I did strong armor. I did ask her a lot of questions, though.
That's good.
Outside of that, any other questions for the Parks and Recs? No? All right. CDBG fund. Any questions on that? Nope. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, okay,
Yes.
question? As a matter of procedure, could you explain what the process is, how this budget, are we expected to vote on the whole entire budget as one? Is there, if you don't like parts of it, you can not vote on? How do we get through all of these things if there's, if we don't come to a consensus as every line item that we agree to? What's the
Yeah,
process?
so the ideal process, let's start with the ideal process, is that today we will go through each of the different line items here laid out on this sheet here. Any questions or comments will get answered. Anything that results in a "I disagree" firmly should be noted. And we are not voting tonight on the budget. That's another thing I want to make sure we're clear on. So that does give some time to go back and say, okay, well, wait a minute. Let's say hypothetically there was a mistake in a number or something like that that becomes uncovered. And we're like, okay, we need to correct that. That would then get corrected and brought back to the board at the next meeting. The expectation is at the next meeting, we would be voting on the budget as a whole. But tonight, it's really kind of to go through and talk about the budget. And if there are line items in that, obviously, it would be something that would be called out individually at the next round. So, for example, let's say you brought up Parks and Rec. You think there should be money in there for the assistant director. If that is something that we can get a general consensus from the board that we all believe should be in there, or at least that she doesn't get, a ding for it if it becomes necessary to do an amendment. That's great, we can make that note, and we can make it a part of the voting on the budget overall. So we are gonna keep track of those types of things. Hopefully, they're very few and far between, so that means there's just a few of them that we would have to address when we go to a vote on it, the actual budget at the next meeting.
That would be brought up at the next meeting.
Yes, and it would either be brought up as a separate line item. I would like to vote on, let's just say hypothetically, 1 through 10. Everything's great based on it was presented, da-da-da-da-da. Can I get a motion? Yes, okay, great, pass. All right, number 11, we have these, I don't know, whatever R is 20, 19, 18, items. And you would be like, well, so we could say, well, I would like to pull out J and L. And, okay, then we vote on everything else, and hopefully we've had enough discourse in tonight's meeting that we know exactly what we're gonna be dealing with on that part of it. And then we could either have it rectified by the conversation we have tonight, or it will just go straight up to vote, and like any other item on the agenda, it would, 4+, it passes.
Okay.
I mean, is that acceptable to the board?
Yeah, I just,
No, we gotta know.
No.
Okay.
To accept the budget would be to approve the resolution for the General Appropriations Act as the budget as a whole. We wouldn't be approving the budget by section, it's the budget as a whole. So should you have my recommendation would be if there's any changes or,
We're a day late on the
Yes.
set, yes.
Mhm.
So,
So
a
we have to-
timing issue, I'm sorry to interrupt.
we have to have the public hearing
Yeah.
next meeting, but we can still approve the budget at the last meeting in December, and that would be the time, so next meeting would be the time to clean up if there needed to be cleanup, so that we had a clean budget to be approved on the 16th of December.
Or if we had a consensus this evening to make a change,
Yes.
And then we can make it for
we
the
could
next.
publish that tomorrow, and then it would give the public time for viewing, and then it would go on the December 2nd hearing.
So it would be, again, my choice, my hope is that anything that it needs to come out, comes out at this meeting.
okay. So what I just brought out, that I would feel more comfortable having money in her thing, or a no ding policy
Right.
for Parks and Rec, is this now when we see if there's a consensus for that? Would
Yeah,
that
I mean, I
solve the
think that'd be
problem?
fine if we want to go through and do that. I mean, I
I
would
don't
like to, I would like to do it that way. I
I'm
mean,
just
if
asking
there is,
how
then
to
great,
get
let's
through
get it
it.
addressed and figure if it is, then we'll make it a part of it and move on. I mean, we're not, we're a third of the way through. We seem to be moving at a pretty good clip, so I don't think it's a big deal to have some discourse on some of the items that may be of contention or question.
If I had my choice, I would like to have, let's say $80,000 in their budget, or the
For benefits.
intention for future staffing for the Parks and Recs, for at least as accessibility to that position if, if needed. I do have concerns, like with Dave talking about the transition to the next person, and I understand we have lower level people. I address my concerns, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's a big hit for that department, that's all. And if she doesn't need it, she doesn't need it. Does it hurt us to have that available?
Well, and I look at it this way, any money that you earmark is money that's taken away from something else.
I understand that, but don't we typically subsidize at some point, do amendments, and I know you're trying not to, but characteristically, is Parks more susceptible to having unforeseens that need some backup, that would then become a reallocation instead of what's the likelihood that we could get through all of 2026 without having to give Parks and Rec any more money?
I think that if you look at it from a different, right, there's two different levels, right? So like a lower and a high level. If you look at an adjustment, it's unlikely. We will probably do some adjustments here and there, okay? There was 80 to 100 of them done in the past, but as, Director Christensen was saying, is that, there was things that were, to put it bluntly, that in the past, the previous budget, it's not director, but budget manager, would go through and pretty much do the budgets. And then the department heads would review them and move on, okay? You could see a steady pattern of increasing. That's what kind of alerted me to, wait a minute, you can't have the same level of predictable growth over every single year. And then I started asking the previous budget analyst to give me the number of adjustments and amendments. And they were huge, the number of them. And that told me there's a problem with the budget itself and the
Right.
budget process. Do I think there'll still be some? Sure. And that's why, with them, I explained, there should be a plus or minus 5% on the budget total for adjustments. Okay? Which again, that's basically what we're talking about. The difference between last year and this year is going to be 5%. Amendments, again, should be just those unforeseen things. The idea that Parks and Rec is going to run into an unforeseen thing is probably unlikely, given the nature of what they're doing. That being said, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, I am going to be coming with an amendment that's going to impact the Parks and Rec and seniors. So there will be one, but that'd be one of the projects that I'm looking at, just for fair warning, so you don't think I'm trying to play any shell
And
games
I
here.
guess my concern, and I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but this is a big deal. Parks and Rec's a big deal.
For sure.
I don't know what departments don't have a high-level deputy position in it?
One at Lisa's level, there isn't one, right? But also, let's remember too that, since Derek left, we had not the most qualified individual running that department as a director. And then that individual left 6 months before their term was up, or the year was up. So for all practicality, Lisa has been running that department for 1.5 years, if not longer. Now, without a doubt, she got, there was a lot that she took on for the, not so much the last 6 months of 24. I mean, for the most part, 24 is the last 6 months, she did bring on a lot, right? Because she just kind of got thrown into that position. Fortunately, she came up through there, so she was well adapted and ready to go. And I think that's the same thing she's trying to make sure happens. So I think it's going to be unlikely that somebody couldn't step up. Would they be, the next Derek? I don't know. And I'm going to use Derek because I heard a bunch of things about his national search and Parks and Rec guy and all that kind of stuff. Will that person be the next one? Maybe, maybe not. Will they come into the position with that same skill set? No. Will they come in with the same skill set that Lisa has at this moment in time? No. Can they get there quickly like she did? Hopefully, yes.
Okay, is there money in the budget for her to advance somebody in her department? Is there any money at all to
So
get her help? I mean,
here's
that's
the-
all, I don't know
yeah.
if you're moving someone up a few grand,
Here's at the end of the day, you gotta remember about Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec does not bring in enough revenue to cover its budget under the best of times. Okay? So we're always pulling money from the general fund. So when you ask, is there money, the question is there some money in the general fund? The answer is yes. If you're asking, is enough money to cover it from the revenue that the Parks and Rec seniors bring in? No. Okay? But there never has been, right? We're
right.
trying to right-size that a little bit with some of the things that are going on and things we're talking about. But the bottom line is that, yes, we talked about the fact that the general fund should be increasing by about $880,000. So absolutely, there's money in the general fund, and there's an option that should we have to, there's readily funds available. It would not be a scramble by any stretch of the imagination to come up with the funding. I would rather, if we looked at it, I'll give you 1 second for both of you. I would rather look at this as hey, let's not earmark the money for it, but let's just understand, we know we have a big enough pot over here that we can draw from. Well, let's just work from it more from the standpoint, we won't ding her. And that way, if we have to, we can pull the trigger. If we were gonna do that, we would have to come to the board anyways, because it's a director level type position, and to get through there and have the budget for that would all have to come to the board anyhow. So there's not gonna be a mystery at that point, and I don't think Lisa, let me restate that. I know from the conversations I've had with Lisa, because I did have some conversations probably second quarter of this year, like, can you rethink things? Do we need to keep hiring people? And she's hired people through the course of this year, and every time we get something through attrition, I keep on saying, like, do we really need to replace that person? Can you reallocate their job across X? And she's, no, no. And she's pretty darn stubborn about it. So, she ends up getting her way on this stuff. So from that standpoint, she will not be shy if that need arises.
Okay.
As much as I am a proponent for a succession plan, and it's something that's been important to me since I have been clerk, I think we need to respect Lisa and her judgment with this budget. Make note of that possibly for 2027. Let her get her feet wet for a full year. We'll have money should something go awry. And of course, we wouldn't ding her. It's been something that was discussed. Lisa's young. Hopefully she's here with us for a long time, but we never know, tomorrow's not promised, as we know. So I think we ought to give her the benefit of the doubt. She said that she can do this, and she's got a team behind her, and let's see how she does. And if, we wouldn't consider it a failure if she doesn't, but we have resources to fulfill a change should that happen. So I disagree at this time, although I do feel a succession plan is important at some point. But right now, if that's what she says she thinks she can do, then let's let her show us. And we'll know if services are hurting, we'll hear it, it'll come out, so.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer Brown?
And so, I know myself, the clerk and the supervisor have the benefit of attending directors' meetings every month, and to see daily the kind of culture that I think our employees are putting together right now. And so, to me, it's not just what Lisa's thinking, but it's her knowledge of the people that are below her and how she is taking what she's getting from the director meeting to her people to have their meetings, to have that same continuity of making the township better. And I see that going on, and so I become very comfortable knowing that if Lisa sat there and said, I've got control of it, I 100% trust her on that.
Is it fair for the rest of the board then if we go through and say that, on this particular topic, that I will make a note or mention of the fact that at the next meeting, that Lisa will not be dinged if it becomes necessary for her to be able to go out and hire an assistant director? And will that satisfy the board so we can move on?
Second.
I'm just looking for a casual.
I trust her too. I mean, she's run the part, if that's her standing, but if something does come up, I agree with you. I think that, being new in the position still to say, well, I don't know, we have no idea what comes up, right? So to not ding her for that would be fine with me.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with that either. That's why I asked the question, can I get a level of reassurance that our residents are not gonna sacrifice the quality of service that they've come to know and appreciate from our Parks and Rec? So, but I also wanna, kind of touch on the point about the Parks and Rec is always a deficit situation. And frankly, again, being government, that's by design, right? Because residents find value in what Parks Rec Seniors provides, and they're willing to pay the taxes commensurate to providing said services at a loss to the general fund to fund said parks, right? It's just like, I guarantee, residents it's a negative situation when you're paying for roads or you're paying for public transit. It's never a moneymaker, but it's something people value and people pay for. So, I understand, appreciate you coming, from your perch in the private sector, but at the same time, in this case, these are one of those departments that think the value overrides the cost burden to the residents.
Trustee Tedder, I would have a quarter ago said, I think you're wrong, but Lisa has beaten me up enough for me to actually capitulate and agree. She has absolutely gone to the extent of explaining that to me, and it has registered. So I do agree, and it does. Now, that doesn't mean I want to waste money, right?
Of course.
But I do understand that the parks will always run at a negative, and I've accepted that, and we've moved on from that in our top-level conversations that her and I have had. I have a little side note is that, I have a little thing with my wife and my friends that I say after the second drink, nothing I say counts. I can't be held accountable for. I'm gonna say anything I said in the first quarter of this year, or maybe even the second quarter, doesn't count really that much either, because there was an awful lot I had to learn. And so through that would have been absolutely one of them, getting an understanding on when is it okay to run at a deficit, because that is just a fact of what happens when you run this type of a program or department or whatever. Took a little while, you know, but at the same token, I've now realized that it's not necessarily that I have to see that we're revenue positive. I just need to make sure we're not wasting the money that, even though we are running at a deficit. So, yes, agree, thank you. All right, anything else on that? No? All right, let's move down to the general fund. We're gonna be going through the general fund between Renee and I until we get to some specific departments. Revenue, any questions on the revenue side? If not, then I would like to bring up the building director, Director Moran. So, just as a little bit of a precursor here for the building department, the building department was historically running at a pretty severe loss before Mr. Director Moran came on board. We have started to right that ship, thanks to a lot to his due diligence on looking at things, as well as the board going through and modifying some of the fees and all that that were in place, many of them which had not been changed for a decade or so. And so we've gotten kind of up to speed, and we're starting to get the legs under it from that standpoint. We are still carrying a little bit of a negative balance that, you know, probably this year we might be getting rid of, but now that we have absorbed and planning back into it, we're gonna see some costs go on that are gonna impact that again. With all that being said, do we have any questions on the building department?
Trying to get to the page.
Trustee Morocco?
How are you staffed right now with, you want me to get you some people, Dave?
Much more comfortable this year, but still running pretty lean, very lean,
Now, you're supposed to be self-funded, right?
yes.
So we're
Yeah.
almost to
Yeah.
that point?
Yeah, we are.
Where we're
We're
self-funding,
very
and
close.
with the new long-term rental ordinance, is that going to get us over that bridge? Is that what we're anticipating for revenue generator, or
Yeah.
to help?
Yeah, so, and that's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. That would be one of those things that I would have said is a supervisor-based project, even though it's in the building department. That is gonna be a pretty big change, right? The ordinance itself is a big thing, it's something we've never done here. We have how many units?
2,400 long-term at least that we have right
That
now.
haven't been inspected. I can tell you some horror stories from my mother in one of those apartments and what they were doing. It is definitely warranted. And I'm not a big person, let's increase, you know, ordinance and all that, but I think there's definitely something here. But yes, you're absolutely correct in the sense of the fact that when I bring it forward, it will not only talk about the ordinance and how it's gonna work and everything else, and the fees and all that, so the revenue aspects of it, but we will also be talking at that point in time about the fact that there's gonna need to be more people hired to do the actual inspections. So that as a case study for what the packets will look like going forward on the supervisor project, in this particular case, it'll have the ordinance, it'll have the revenue expected from the fees that we will be, you know, the board will be accepting or passing, and then also the cost structure that's gonna come along with it. So it'll be like, again, a 360 view of everything, so it's very clear what's going on. But yes, the long-winded answer to your thing is that there will be, the idea of the planning building department is that it should be a revenue-neutral department. Meaning, or would you say
Funding.
Funding, yeah. It should be self-funding, yes. With the understanding that, you know, there'll be years that are gonna be plus or minus a little bit, right? Because you are allowed to make a little bit of a profit, but you can't be egregious about it. So there'll be some plus or minuses, because we are still working off a debt that he inherited.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on the building department?
I'll just
Trustee
bring
Lemon.
mine up now for the whole thing, because my issue that I contacted you about was the legal fees in all these departments, that some didn't exist, and now it's in there, and just, if you could just explain that part, please.
Sure, I get it. So what's happened in the past is that the legal went to more like the board type thing. I mean, it was in a GL account that was basically buried. You have no idea how that used to come together. I mean, the bills that we would get from the Kelly firm were all aggregated together and put into these one pots. or, there's a couple pots, but the general one was just the biggest one. We ran into some issues that, or requests, I'll say requests, to be polite, about certain commissions and boards wanting access to legal counsel. There was a need for it. There was also a old process or procedure that it would all come through the supervisor, and the supervisor then would approve it or not approve it to be able to have that contact. Upon consideration, I thought that when I started diving into it as far as the reasons why, predominantly the reason why is so that the supervisor would understand what's going on, right? So that we're not wasting money on these types of things. It became a little bit more, I think it came into question some of the perspective of that, is that the still true intent? And if it is, then maybe it's okay, or maybe we can do better. And so what I looked at is saying, okay, let's take out some money, put in a budget for each of some of these different boards. So like the Planning Commission, the Zoning of Appeal, the Board of Trustees. I carved out some money that was really kind of part of the overall that was being spent aggregately, but now I broke it out and budgeted it for different places. So now in there, if the board ever decides that they need to get the Kelly firm to give them a legal opinion on something, or they have a legal question, they have a direct line of communication, right? They don't need to run it through the supervisor's office. That gets rid of a perception, and one that I didn't particularly like. So that is that there was some sort of control over there. Yes, there was control, but it was control because just trying to be fiscally responsible, but I could understand why that control could be perceived for other reasons. By having that there, understand that each of the different areas where the legal fee was put into the budget, the Kelly firm will come back and not only denote who was the individual, what was the project or basis of the question, and what was the department or board or commission. Okay? At the end of the day, if we go through, and we'll just pick on ourselves, if the board goes through and we have 10,000 allocated, and Terry, you, for whatever reason, decide to call the Kelly firm X amount of time and spend $8,000, and the next thing you know, we're over budget, we have to make an amendment. Now we come through, we have the conversation, here's why we went over, here's exactly where the money went on what by who. Okay, so it just gives a lot clearer traceability in being able to understand how those dollars are being utilized, which I believe was the intent for going through the supervisor, so we still get that, but yet you also have the freedom then to be able to reach out on your own and not feel like I'm being some sort of gatekeeper, or the supervisor's being a gatekeeper. So you'll see that in there, that I put that in through a lot of the different departments to be able to give them a little bit of flexibility to go through and do that. 10,000, I mean, the Kelly firm, and I know he's sitting right behind me staring at me, I can feel the eyes burning into the back of my head. They're pretty fair on how they bill. I mean, a lot of things they do and they don't. And I mean, so I'm not overly concerned. 10,000 seemed like a reasonable amount to start, and if we need to make an amendment later, we'll figure that out and move on. So that's one. The other thing I do want to make sure that's noted is that the legal fees were upped a lot in some of the other departments. For fire, for example, you saw one of the biggest increases, and that again is because their union contract's coming up. And not having dealt with that, a union contract here, and negotiating it, I was just told that legal gets involved and those fees tend to go up in those years. So that was part of the other reason why they were going up. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd get a big ding if I called them for $8,000 worth.
Well, it'd be interesting.
Yes,
We'd like to
it
know what for, but, all right. Any other questions on the building?
Yes. I looked through and I see that planning and zoning, of course, is just gone. Basically, it's all defunded, correct?
Yes.
So I didn't see any money for consulting. So where does the money, and maybe I just didn't see it, did somebody else see it? I didn't see any money for.
So on the planning side of things, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah, so if, for Dick Carlisle, right?
Yep.
Carlisle and Wortman, where would that, I looked for it, I didn't see it.
That's under contractual services, it's still under planning.
Okay,
And I think if I remember off the top of my head, it's about $30,000 or $32,000. Just on that note, I had Dick and Megan in my office today with Director Moran, and we were talking again about how that process is gonna work from the planning side. They do not foresee any, recognizing the fact that going way back, You know, Dick was here way back in the day, and he was the planning person, and then, from the planning administration type person, brought in Brian, and Brian eventually became the planning director. We went through and talked about what would be changing with the fact that, we're looking now at Carlisle Wortman, kind of history tends to repeat itself, being a little bit more of the face of it. Megan, and I, just so we're clear, when I say the face, really the person who has the most domain knowledge about what needs to be done. The counter person is somebody different. And that counter person would be the person that's gonna be dealing with the person that comes walking in on the phone or emails. For the next, I think, what did we say, you know,
First quarter.
yeah, through the end of the first quarter, starting out through the end of the first quarter, they are going to be handling, we're gonna be directing almost all calls, emails directly to Carlisle Wortman. Megan is gonna be coming into the office one day a week to be able to look at that, also to help train, and we're gonna be, I also asked them to put together the job description based on the skill sets that we're missing here, of what a planning administration person would look like and what we would need. And so then the question I said is that if we need to have that as a full-time, then let me know. So I'm kind of leaving up to them a little bit to kind of give me a little bit more direction based on our skill sets and resources we have here. When we first started this, we were looking at the fact that Kate could probably be the counter person. You know, it's fine to go back through, you know, based on the code, state code, we have 10 days to get these permits out and all that kind of stuff. Historically, we've done it pretty darn quick, you know, within 24 hours or so. We would like to keep that going. We just need to now figure out the best way to streamline that. And I believe that over the next quarter and a half, if we look at the end of the first quarter, we'll be able to have a much better position to say, yes, we actually probably do need a planning administrative person, a junior to come in and possibly stay with us and grow with us, or it may be a part-time person that we even talked to Carl Wortman, might hire them and they just become a part-time person here. But we're really trying to figure out what's gonna happen. There are other tasks that Brian did that, you know, for an individual with his knowledge and skill set, we're probably tasked below that. And so there's part of the things that I look at is right-sizing the task to the individual, right? You don't need to have a Porsche to carry a couple 2x4s home, right? A pickup truck will do just fine. And so we're looking at those same types of things, and there's some tasks that are being done by the planning department that probably really would be better handled in a different department, because of the nature of what that other department does. So we're gonna be looking at that and having conversations about that. Does that?
Well, it just seemed like a low number, I guess that's probably why I was confused. Because it doesn't, I mean, because based on the woodland ordinance, I know how much that, you know, cost. That
Okay,
was-
so we're also clear, you gotta remember,
Yeah.
and this is really important, this is part of
Yeah.
where, you know, some of these things, like Carl Wortman comes in here a lot,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's another thing, like, well, geez, they're
That-
coming in here all this time for 32 grand, that doesn't seem right. And it's not, just so we're clear, 100% not. We pay Carl Wortman Associates over the course of a year will bank about a little over 100 grand with us.
Okay,
You gotta remember that about 80% of their revenue is escrow driven. It's
Okay.
paid by the applicant. Okay, so what you're seeing is what's coming out of the general fund, or the part of the revenue that we're directly responsible. So if we have a P2 meeting or a planning meeting, and Megan's sitting here with us, the applicant is really paying for her time to be here.
I see.
Okay, so that's why that number does look low
Yeah.
when you think about it in that
As a whole,
perspective.
right, when I see the amount of time that he spends here, or
Exactly
the
right.
firm spends here,
And
you
like
see
the
that, so.
DDA and the CIA, you know, they pay Carl Wortman too, but that's not
It's
factored
not
into
a
the
budget,
planning.
it's not a budgeting type of, I got it, budget
Yeah.
line. I got it, perfect, thank you.
Yep.
So on that note, to be clear, 30 out of the 32,000, only 22,000 goes to Carlisle. The other 5 goes to the person who takes the minutes, and then there's another line item. It's broken up into
Yeah.
3 line
Yeah.
items. I have that same concern, and I understand how the escrow thing, obviously, and all that, but has anyone taken into consideration the township initiated rezonings that would be kind of on us, that wouldn't be escrow driven? You know, that we didn't do those, we haven't finished it, we're in the process of it, like that's that's above and beyond what we've done in years past that so I just wanna, I just don't wanna be hesitant to get their support because we don't have the funds to get their support, because we did eliminate a big, salary position to offset that, and to keep it the same and have them take on the responsibility, I got the same impression that that's gonna be short.
That's why I'm looking to see if anyone from Carlisle Workman was here.
No, but,
okay.
yeah, I mean, to say
Yeah.
that we're only gonna use the same amount last year as we're gonna next year seems unlikely.
Yeah, but Sam, if you take a look at it, right, from the amount of undeveloped land and projects is diminishing rapidly, right? Matter of fact, when we talked to them today specifically about that, I mean, and let's face it, Megan and Dick have been riding shotgun for a couple of years now. So, I mean, they're very in tune. It's not like we just pick them off the street and they don't know what they're walking into. I specifically had them come in today to make sure that, both Director Moran and I were comfortable with the numbers that were given. We told them what we had in the budget, and they're like, yeah, that seems fine. I mean, Dick's been here for 30-plus years.
I know, with the
40.
township initiated rezoning, that's gonna be a thing with, the ordinance changes that we're doing, that we're gonna implement, that's gonna be a thing. I just wanna
The
make
ordinance-
sure
oh,
that,
yeah.
and I understand that he's funded in all different, everyone else is paying him too. It just seemed low.
Yeah,
That's
and-
all I'm saying, that I don't
Yeah,
want
the
us
same
to
conversation.
not get the services we need, or not do initiated projects that we wanna do, not advance, because I don't wanna start making a choice of, do we finish, aligning the rezoning with the master plan, or do we have, or do we do the long-term rental ordinance, cause we're down to the last $5,000 and we don't wanna go over, I don't want it to stifle our
Yeah.
making things better, and getting us back where there's a lot of stuff we should have been doing over the years, and we know that because it got us into some litigation and things that we could have avoided, so I just want to make sure that
We've
we're.
been more proactive. Yeah.
Right. if we're
The
more
adoption of the
proactive.
rental ordinance is actually in the contractual budget of the building department, not the planning. So there's two separate budgets there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
point made,
Yeah.
just
So, I
want to
mean,
make that clear.
I appreciate that, and I know, hopefully you don't feel like we're attacking you.
I do.
So what you're saying is Dick has agreed not to exceed 32,000.
Well, that's why I turned around to look, because I wanted to see if he was here, but yes, we were talking about, is it gonna be a retainer or is it gonna be hourly?
Right.
Right, and so I said, hey, let's, for the next, between now and the end of the year, I didn't wanna do a retainer, and he's probably listening. And because of the fact that we've got the holidays and everything else, and it's traditionally a slow time, so why pay him the same fee that will be in the busy time, right? The busy time, from my understanding, is that starting in January, good developers are starting to get their stuff all lined up and getting in here and all that kind of stuff, so they can hit the ground as soon as it thaws. So we'll probably end up moving to a retainer after the first of the year, and he agreed just to do it hourly between now and then. So, yeah, so yes, that was kind of my thinking too, so.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions on the building planning? Nope. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
The next one's the clerk department, and I'm sure that there's tons of questions.
Oh, where do I
Do you have to
begin?
move over there?
Yeah.
You gotta be in the hot
You
seat?
do need
I
to
move
come
to adjourn?
So please come sit down and, I'm sorry, you're gonna have, okay. All right, that's fine.
Wow.
Wow, you got a stunt double.
Any questions for the clerk department?
I'm sure she's on it.
Okay,
Well, that was just.
I scared them off.
There you go, perfect.
It was the entry. It was
Yep.
the-
Before we drag it out, anything on the elections?
No, just to emphasize, we've got a big election coming up. It's gubernatorial election. We've got state rep, state senate, if I believe it's correct.
Yep.
So there's a lot happening in the election world
Yes,
next
sir.
year, hence the additional cost.
Yep, the big jump.
And you're adequately staffed?
I am.
And I did see that, as the two elected signed the, I don't know the name of it, the agreement not to come back to the board, are you sure you wanna?
You feel good about that?
I mean, is it, I found that, peculiar,
if
but as
something-
long as you're comfortable with
Something
it.
unforeseen comes, I'll come back to the board,
Okay,
but I don't anticipate, no.
okay.
I think he meant that he didn't think you needed to sign one of those things.
Oh.
Is that where you were going?
Yeah, more or less.
I was
more or less.
strong-armed.
Okay.
We're all team players, It's good for one, it's good for all.
And you, I didn't
I
get
didn't see yours.
You're
Yeah, I
right.
didn't see yours.
Yeah, that's funny, you should bring that up. I wouldn't sign that damn. No, I'm just kidding. It was an oversight, they didn't ask me to sign it, it's really what the.
Renee, can you
Well,
just
you
get
can
that
still
to
sign
us
one
when
for
you get
next
a
week.
minute?
I can sign one for next week, for sure. I will bring it next week.
Be in the packet.
Okay. All right, anything for the treasurer? Treasurer Brown?
I just thought I'd share just a couple quick things. The first is, I want to make sure the board recognizes that there's actually revenue that comes to the treasurer's office that offsets a significant portion of our budget, and that is the charges we place against the entities for sending out the summer tax bills. So, but for the other taxing authorities, we wouldn't have a summer tax bill. And for that reason, townships charge, for example, the schools, community college, and others, a fee per parcel, and they pay us, and that covers things like postage, labor, a portion of my stuff. And it's.
It's $103,000.
We budget $100,000 for next year on
Yeah,
that. So
that's it.
it's a pretty good chunk of my budget that shows that really being a lesser number.
Mm-hmm.
We've never reported that here. It's reported under general revenues, and you would see that on, I think, on page 1. Wanted
It's
to share-
$103,000,
Wanted to
yeah.
share that. The other thing you often see is when it comes to bank fees and why you see those going up and down. For a long time, you never saw any bank fees because any money in the checking account was earning fee credits. So on a large business account, when you have money in your checking account, they didn't pay you interest, they gave you so many basis points in fee credits. So we've always had fees, but they were cleared out by the fee credits. In the last number of years, because interest rates have gone up so much, the fee credits you're better off not having the fee credit and earning 4% on the money, because fee credits are 2% right now, and I can get 4% liquid all day. So that's why you'll see my year-to-date number on 2025 is only $4,000 of bank fees, and a good portion of those are actually related to, say, not our primary bank, but other bank fees that we may have paid. I've changed it a little bit because now we're able to get some hybrid things where we're earning fee credits on part of the money in the account, but the rest of it goes into a high yield that earns 4%. So it was really a no-brainer to do that. And so you will see this depending on what's happening with interest rates. Bank fees could fluctuate up and down. Relative to the actual cost, which could be 40 or 50 grand in fees, we've got 3 different lock boxes. We got it for the general fund, taxes. We have a separate lockbox for the fire departments, monies that come in, and every ACH, all the electronic payments. They clip you on all of it. We monitor it to make sure our fees are kept at a reasonable level. So that's why that number is where it's at, and I just want to make sure the board understood that.
And that's why it's challenging to do a budget report like this when you come to a analytical person, especially a CPA treasurer. So, any other questions on the treasurer? Good stuff. Nope. Okay. Township board. This is you guys for the most part. There's some other stuff obviously in there, but any questions on that?
Give me a
That's Mr.
minute.
Morocco. Go ahead. You
Find
wanna?
my page here.
I think the clothing budget's light.
So the way the clothing budget was derived is that we looked at 2, in the past, there's been none, right? The board didn't get any logo gear. We looked at it and it turns out to be 2 shirts. So, and I think it's reasonable. The board does go to an awful lot of events and it would be helpful to be identified as a board trustee member. Not everybody is as pretty and handsome as Sam, so, we're not the movie stars and we need all the help we can get. So I think it's reasonable to ask to be able to have some gear if you're going to a township-related event.
That's why I'm fighting for everybody, brother.
I know,
Fighting
I know.
for everybody.
Just
I was actually against it, Sam, because everyone has a badge and you could put it on with whatever you're wearing, but if it's gonna make you happy, get a shirt.
Do I have a?
Well, I do go to a fair
Swipe
share
up.
of ribbon cuttings, you know, and I
I'm
do
just-
work in construction, so it's been known to get dirty once in a while. So it would be nice for me to be, if I'm at my office or before I go, to to be able to put on a clean shirt with the township logo on it, not go, and I'm not gonna go home and change, So I just thought that would be nice. I could keep a couple of clean shirts at the office, and then that would,
Yeah. And again, we've cut enough money out of the budget that I don't think the residents would be upset about the $350 that we're pulling back to be able to be recognized. So I do understand the point of, we all probably could afford it ourselves, but at the same token,
And I was willing to pay for them, but I got the liberty to put whatever I wanted on it, and that seemed to not go over well, so.
well,
Yeah, that could be dangerous.
So if you want me to wear the approved logo, then, I thought it was a mild ask.
okay.
But everyone doesn't have to take advantage of it.
Treasurer Brown.
I'm guessing we should have something signed off by everybody that indicates these shirts will not be worn at any type of a political event, because they shouldn't be. They're paid for by the taxpayers, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
We all know that already, but just for clarity for our residents.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like anything else. But thank you for pointing that out. Trustee Taylor.
I know it's in here, and I'm trying to find it. I know there's a budget for conference attendance, professional development type thing, which I think is very important for all of us. I think we're one of the few townships that I know of in Oakland County that haven't sent trustees to the MTA. And maybe that's lack of interest, ignorance to the fact that they can go, I don't know, but it's important to me. I'm gonna speak for myself, not for the rest of the board, but I would be happy to take the vacation days necessary to attend MTA's, at the very least, the annual meeting, if not others, to represent the township. I think there's also learning opportunities. They have great workshops and breakout sessions to help us sharpen our saws, to be better and to do better in our functioning roles. So I want to make sure, I know there's something in here, I believe, I'm trying to find it.
It's
And it-
$1,500
That's for the entire board?
for the 4 trustees.
Yeah, which I don't know what the MTA is an example.
Is that housing and everything?
That does,
Well, so having gone to the MTA this year, it would not be enough to spend the 2 or 3 days there. But I think if you look at the agenda, almost the things that, and I believe that Lauren and I looked at it to figure out what would be appropriate for who to go, right? And, is there enough events for a clerk to go, a treasurer to go, for just specific training. Okay, now that, I'm not talking about general and just a better understanding, because there's 2 functions to like the MTA. One is to get, specific training on it, and the other one is to build connections, right? I mean, that's extremely important in this. So, with those 2 things in mind, if you were looking at just going for your specific training and doing your connection during that time, most of them were built in agenda with a single day. So like the clerk would have came for a day. The trustee would have been on a different day. They would have had some different programs in there. That was at the annual conference out in Grand Rapids. For me, I went there and I stayed longer, twofolded. One is I did attend some of these other classes that would have been more, for like the treasurer, I went in to see, okay, what is a treasurer? What can they invest in, what they can't invest in, right? As a supervisor, it doesn't really have much to do with me, but I just want to have a better understanding of each of the different departments, so I attended almost all of them, so I was there for the full 3 days, plus I wanted to meet people. If you guys decide that you think that you're gonna, and I'm, by the way, huge education guy. I believe in spending money on education. The smarter we all become, the better we can serve our residents. So there is no qualm on my side if you guys want to jump that number up. So, I mean, you know, it's up to the board. We just took what was there. We had the conference call, or not the call, but, two of the trustees were in the meeting. We went through it and we said, yeah, okay, that's basically what we've been spending for the last 3 years. To whatever end, like you said, either out of, not ignorance, but, or desire, it was what it was.
Right. Yeah, so no, I'd like to see that number increase. Again, I'm on my own dime relative to taking time off and all of that, but at the very least, I think it should cover your conference, the cost of your conference and hotel. And again, to your point, yeah, the sessions are valuable, right? There are a lot of, you can pick and choose what to participate in. There may also be opportunities for some of us that are more seasoned to actually present, and then that may become
Yeah.
as a cost benefit, right? But I also do, the value proposition related to building those relationships is as important
For sure.
as, you know, because we are part of a regional network, and maybe it's not MTA I want to go to, maybe it's SEMCOG, you know, I mean, but I think it's important for us to at least have the ability to, you know, because we give many hours as people don't see beyond these formal meetings, right? Packet in front of us as an example. I think all of us take this job very seriously, and I think it's a small consideration to ask us to at least be able to cover one conference a year. And I don't know what that number is. You guys were there last year. Is it $1,000? Is it $700? You know, per person? I don't remember. I don't know. I'd have to ask you that.
SEMCOG is much less. You know, at least the ones I looked at for in-state type things. I don't even know if they have something out of state, but I didn't even look at those. I mean, you know, it's, you know, we pay a membership fee to SEMCOG and that, and most of them are, you know, at most a couple $100. The MTA, yeah, if you're gonna go there, stay overnight, the per diem, the food and all that, yeah, that does add up pretty quick, because I mean, it was at the, what was the hotel over there, the big nice one? But I think the rooms were like, even with the discount with the MTA, I think were like 200 and some odd bucks a night. I was there for 3 nights, so I mean, there's $1,000 with the food and the course and everything else in one conference. If you would like, just tell me the number. Tell me what number you guys want. Put $1,000 in for everybody and go from there, fine.
It's reasonable.
I think that's,
Yeah, but that would be
Appropriate.
times 4, right? Because they're
Right.
under their own.
Yeah, they're under
Yes.
their own.
Yeah, we
so-
don't want that number to go down.
Yeah,
So just
yeah,
before
and
the
I'm
trustees.
Yeah.
I don't need to recoup mileage and, you know, like, it's just the at least the foundational costs associated, right? And
Yeah.
I think 1,000 a person would cover that,
okay, let's
Okay.
make that
you
adjustment.
know, and if it's, well,
I think you should still bump up mileage accordingly. He might not want to submit, but somebody else might, so.
Well, we'll
got
just include
mileage.
it. I mean, miles will go in there as well.
You've
I
got
mean,
mileage at only $200.
was that a separate line
It's a
item?
separate line.
Yeah, that's not enough.
So we
We can probably take a quick look at, based on this year's numbers, what would that look like with real dollars, of what it costs and what the per
Yeah.
diem is, and
well,
whatever,
maybe,
whatever that is.
I'm
that's
not
what we're
worried
doing.
about mileage.
But can I make another point? I don't know if you guys have been to any, but they have regular meetings and
Yeah.
they don't cost anything. You know, SEMCOG and stuff, you could just go and, so it would just be for this big conference if people are interested. Or other classes, I mean, there's stuff that,
Sure.
There's planning department stuff.
yes,
and,
or
zoning.
even buying books to read stuff would go under that category.
Mhm.
Yeah, like this year, sorry guys, gals, I did buy all of you the MTA book, Township Association. Bought them all, we ordered them, they came in, and then they all disappeared. Don't know what happened to them.
I seen one in somebody's office
Yeah,
that had my name inside the binder. I didn't look.
yours was crinkle engraved, so I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have left it laying
Got a
around.
placard on it.
You know, and it's got the Guy Fieri
I
haircut.
did see the book, and I think it would be helpful
Yeah.
to have that book.
For sure.
You know.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, part of it, and I took that out of my budget to go through it and get it to you guys. I don't know what happened, so somehow
Okay.
Yeah,
Who's
and-
ever listening's gonna get a ding.
I know, they are gonna get it.
So is there-
It's been a little bit of a mystery, and we've been trying to work that out.
So is there a consensus? Again, I don't know, is it,
I think
Is
so.
it-
Yes.
She's gonna change it.
okay,
Okay.
perfect,
So we're now gonna bump that up to 1,000
okay.
Person.
for 4. because us three have our own individual.
Okay. One other item under the trustee budget, or the board budget rather, and I'll be the bad guy in bringing it up, but the Township Times. I personally, and I said it when we voted, I'll say it again tonight, I don't find it a value add. I'm not saying the content doesn't, I mean, it's hit or miss as far as if I believe it yields value for what the $3,000 a month we're paying. But I think a lot of that is noteworthy, newsworthy on itself. I get my hands on Orion Review all the time, and another township leader who I won't mention kind of chuckles at the prospect of paying to put in the stuff that we put in, because again, I think it's as part of a community newspaper, and I can appreciate the fact that they need revenue, which is generally yielded through advertising. I don't find the value. One of the, I think the worst examples is the July edition, which was talking about fireworks safety in late July. And so taking a page to talk about something that's already passed for the year, made more sense in June. So $36,000, we're talking about cutting costs and sharpening our pencils. For me, this is a no-brainer. At the very least, while I'm in support of the budget in large part, it would be something I'd like to separate out to at least have the opportunity to vote no on. So that's
Well, that's
where I
kind of
stand.
what we're doing here tonight, so.
Yeah.
I will share with you that I get a fair amount of calls and emails. I would say the overwhelming majority that I get tend to be, why is Bluegrass closed, and, blah, 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 those types of things, right? But I do get a fair amount of positive, and the bulk of those come from the Township Times. Do I think we can do a better job on it, to your point? Absolutely, I think we can, and I think we're moving down that road in there. We haven't been doing it, I know the Township Times existed before, but the individuals that were doing it are not here. Lauren's different now in doing this. I think we're improving it. I think, Sam made a recommendation about a month ago about some of the things, and it was actually talking about some positive feedbacks. We got positive feedbacks by taking some of our board meetings now and putting it into common language, right? So, there's a rule on the insurance company, you're not allowed to use technical jargon when you give pamphlets out to prospects. The same thing we're taking with the Township Times. We're trying to go through and make it a little bit, take some of these things that were either not discussed or discussed only in the format of the board meeting, and simplifying it down so that people can have a better understanding and grasp who don't live and breathe this every day like we do. I think there's a lot of value that can be brought there into doing that. And as far as that chuckling other person, I would say that the difference that we get by doing that is that we control the narrative in the story. We know that, watching what goes into that paper, I may not follow Facebook, but I do read the paper still, so again, I'm old school. I've read many stories in there that are very biased. The intent here with that Township Times is to give the residents a source that is unbiased. If we leave it up to the Megan Kellys and whoever else are the writers in there, they're gonna write it based on their slant. And I think that's a disservice, because that suddenly becomes then the de facto fact. And that's not the case. And I've seen it too many times being misquoted. So I think there's a lot of value in the fact that we are controlling the narrative on it. And I do recognize there are other mediums, but there was, nope, she left. There was a young woman, there was a woman here and a friend that I was talking to before this meeting that went through and said, they were asking, when do I get to talk about had some thoughts about the senior center and how it's growing and so on and so forth. I said, well, at the budget this meeting, this is not really a time for that. There will be a time at the next thing. And she goes, well, how do I know when? I said, well, because online we have the budget, and I went up, got the agenda, and showed her where in there that she would speak. She goes, oh, that's that computer thing. And she goes, I'm not gonna be it. It's another channel. It's another channel. And I think it's an important channel to maintain.
Yeah.
So I'd be my advocate for it.
Yeah.
But I'm one of 7.
Yeah, just to just to push back on what you said respectfully, you said we get to control the narrative. You get to control the narrative. And as you know, being in this job for the last 12, going on 13 months.
Nope, 2 days short of a year.
Okay, 2 days short of a year, 363 days.
Yeah.
You know that it's not always sing-song and kumbaya up here, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, for
we
sure.
try to be deliberative, we try to align, but there are times that we don't. And I think I also think it's dangerous that we have a section within our newspaper through the supervisor's office that sets the record, but that's the role of media. If we feel the media is being biased or disingenuous, then I think by all means, we as a board can push back on that. But I don't think the Clarkson News is a suitable mechanism through which we create our own narrative when it's the narrative of one, and that might be 90% that we agree. But that 10% is the most important part of everything we do. It's that the dissension that happens at these meetings on occasion is important. And I don't think that it should be the full-time supervisor or any member of this board's role to change or to put the events in their words when there's really not a mechanism. Because I know when Trustee Hayward and I were asked to, as part of the agreement that we all supported, was that we were going to be able to provide input. Well, input turned out to being you have 24 hours, maybe less, to provide your comments. And by the way, there's not enough time to really implement your comments because we're sending it to print the next day. So that's another fatal flaw in all of this that might otherwise seem like a great idea. But those are my probably bigger concerns on top of what I think is a waste of money for otherwise newsworthy information. So.
Trustee
I'll
Morocco.
chime in. I agree with Jim. I don't see much value in it, but because it's never been used the way I would want it used, which is actually put information that's useful in there. You know, it's a whole lot of fluff and pictures and stuff that's really irrelevant. But if it had the actual print and the content of ordinance changes and what we're doing, and even a layman's, thing, and it actually had some information that was valuable. What I don't like about the way that we're transparent is that we have, say you're gonna do a rezoning or, an ordinance change, more likely, because that affects everyone. It's the rules you gotta follow, right? We don't put the text in there before the public hearing and say, here's a whole page. This is all the rules we're gonna change in the township, and there's gonna be a public hearing on it, in 2 weeks or a month, and let people read it. It's always here's a link if you wanna, click on the link and then find the ordinance, and people say, well, we put it in the newspaper. We don't put in the newspaper what the content is. We just put in the minimum amount of words we can put. So it might be change to ordinance 1.9-3 sign ordinance, you know what I mean? It doesn't say it doesn't have the words for people to digest and then come to the public hearing. After the fact news to me is irrelevant news, when it comes to rule change. I've always been an advocate for trying to find a way to tell the people what we're about to do to them before we do it to them, so they can understand it, digest it, come to a meeting and participate. And I think that's why I don't like it, because it doesn't do the purpose that I would like it to do. I'm not interested in any of that other stuff that's fluff, and maybe somebody is, you know what I mean? But it seems like we try to find content, and there is content, but it's not being, and we don't have those every month to put in there. Like here's an ordinance change, here's the words we're doing. Or even if it was an article written by our staff saying, we are going to have a public hearing, in bold, on the 14th, and we're gonna be talking about a tree ordinance, so we're gonna, you know what I mean? Like, you talk about putting in layman's terms, for people, we don't do a good job of letting people know what's coming down the pipe, and for me to support it, that's what I would want it to become more of a way of getting people to know what's going on prior to it, so we could encourage them to have time to read it and do it. They're not gonna link it and go to the township website and then find it and then read it. That's just hard, that's hard. We're very privileged to have, even though I think the Clarkson News is a rag and they don't publish things fairly because they're biased, because we're their biggest customer, in my opinion, but it does get to every household, and that's important. That is something that I do think has value, that we can get inside everybody's home, because you can't do it on Facebook, you can't do it any other way. It's on your counter, and if you choose to be involved or engage or educate yourself, it's there. I just don't think that we use it to the best of our ability, would be my point,
Trustee now, Matthew.
Being that today's about the budget though, you both said conflicting things. I guess our decision tonight is, are we gonna pay for it and continue to pay for it in the 26 budget? And if there's issues with how it's done, that's a separate meeting, which we have to discuss, and talk about what's in it. So I think that conversation might not get resolved tonight. So tonight is about the funding, and I think we need to come to the decision if we're gonna fund it, because that could be one of his amendments and then he'd get dinged, right? It can be changed. It's not set in stone, so I think let's just try and decide on that part tonight and go forward on whether, if you like it to continue because everybody gets it, which I agree, change what we want in there.
May I ask how I was contradictory?
Oh, because you don't wanna pay, you don't wanna pay for it, you don't want it. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, that's certainly a piece of it, but the ways we're using it are, I think, an additional example beyond that. The reason it's a waste is that it's a boondoggle in a lot of fronts, and it was created, I think, a long time ago by a previous leader who used it for personal aggrandizing. And I don't want it, and slipping back into quote unquote using it to set the record straight is one person's lens through
I
which.
understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying tonight is you decide you don't, you're saying you don't want it, but trustee Morocco is in favor of it if we change it. So I think as a board, we're talking about the money part this evening, and as far as what goes in it, I think is another meeting discussion is all I'm saying.
Right, well, we're talking about whether we are willing to fund something.
Correct.
And I think it both this board and the people here and on watching or tuning in later deserve to know why I'm opposed to something. I think I don't want to just go through and say I'm opposed to line item X and just shut my mouth. I think it's important that I provide context, that matters. Context matters.
Trustee Tedder, I agree that the context does matter. I just think at this point in time, that's why I did not try to stop or interrupt you. I just let you go because I think it's relevant where you're coming from and why you say what you want to say. I do think at some point in time, though, it really does come down to the math question on does the board want to fund it first and foremost, and then, again, at subsequent meetings could be on what the content would be or what the criteria would be. We're not always locked into having to do it every single period, right, that it's on now. So there can be some things that can be looked at. So I guess the main question still here tonight, and Treasurer Brown, I'll let you speak in a minute, is do we want to have that funded or do we want to strike it out and end all conversations on it? Right, so I guess that's the way we're looking at it. Treasurer Brown.
Well, my belief is that the supervisor is the spokesperson for the township. That's one of his responsibilities. And so he's called by the papers, and a lot of residents reach out to him. If something significant happens, he's gonna be right there in the middle of it. And so he got elected for that role, and he has that responsibility. When it comes to the Township Times, the board has to remember that there's a number of things that go in there, that if it's not going in there, I'm gonna have to change my budget, because I'm gonna need to put something in the paper relative to the tax bills a couple times a year. And so some of this is gonna be spent anyway. I don't know what that number is, but if you went back and looked through all the Township Times, I know the clerk puts quite a few things in it. I never read a paper where I think all of it's good. I don't. And so it's just impossible because we're all different people and we all have a different perspective, and that's okay. But I listen to a lot of people who come into the township, especially our seniors, who they love getting that paper, and they love seeing the Township Times. And I get a lot of phone calls after I put my little things in it of people following up. I can't speak for the clerk's office or the building department, but certainly, we could ask them to analyze what kind of feedback they get from that. But we're never gonna have a paper that, a Township Times that's always is the perfect vessel. We also don't always have to run 4 pages.
Right.
So maybe that's a piece of it, but I continue to support it, so.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just had a comment, and I would say it as it stands, because based on everything that I just want to give my opinion of why I'm against it, that's all I'm saying. So my point is, and I would prefer to, you have your own budget for what you want to put in there, and you guys have if you need to put something for the clerk, that she has her own budget, same for Paul. If we're looking at, if those are important things to put in there for to do a separate thing or something like that, aside from the Township Times, I didn't understand if Sam was for it or against it. But I think that some of the things that Sam wants to see in there is gonna be in there too late, based on, if we wanna put in something regarding a new ordinance that's coming up, or a public hearing, because a lot of times, we don't get the information until it's too late, based on whenever the agenda comes out, or something gets moved, maybe we could say, well, we think it's gonna come up at the next meeting, but what if it doesn't? And then everybody showed up and it wasn't discussed. So, it's kinda hard to back out of something like that. So that's why I just think that, regardless of if it's stuff that we think is good, I don't think it's gonna be timely enough, and that's why I'm against it.
Well, see, it can be, that's why I'm not, I was contradicting because it was 2 different things. If it was what I wanted, then if it was educating the residents on things that were happening and stuff that Carrie's putting in, stuff that Paul's putting in, okay, and I don't think that needs to be, necessarily a monthly thing. Like, this month, when I opened it, I felt like it was all stuff that we tried to generate content to share with the residents, you know what I'm saying? So if that's what the intent is, that's what the intent is, I think that, Dave, for my situation is that the planning department or somebody else should be tasked with what the new rules are. You know what I'm saying? Or that it has, like we did the rezoning, we're gonna put up the new sign saying there's a future rezoning coming, and that's coming. Like, that's good information, that ordinance we changed, that should be out to the people. So I guess my opinion is, in short, is I don't know that we have to have a Township Times, but I understand we need Carrie to put in stuff, we need Paul to put in stuff. I think there's stuff we should put in from the planning department, that pertains to ordinances. How they format that is different. Now, maybe we don't do 4 pages, maybe it's not every month. I guess that's where the discussion is. As it sits now, I don't see I see cuts being made in places that maybe, where every dollar matters. That's not one of the places that I think we should keep money, unless we're gonna use it in a different way, than it's being used.
Well, I feel like we're rehashing a little bit, the conversation we had, I don't know, whatever it was, back in July or something like that, when we talked about keeping this going. So I would just, at this point in time, unofficially, right, just by a show of hands, who would like to see it continue in the budget at the funding level that it's at today? So I would like to see it in there.
Can we do that, Dan?
Yeah, you can make a motion, that's what it sounds
Oh.
like you can make, it's an open meeting.
All right, I'll make a motion to include the budget amount for the Township Times for 2026.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to request a roll call vote.
Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Give me a second to get my rotation. Trustee Dalamothu,
Yes?
Trustee Tedder,
No.
Supervisor File,
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Hayward,
No.
and Trustee Morocco.
No.
So,
Mr. Supervisor, may
Yes.
I just, process question, So, if I may ask of our attorney, Mr. Kelly, so my understanding here, this is a 100% omnibus process. There's no opportunity at any point to say, I want to pull out, and we kind of did this in a de facto sense right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, this is an omnibus budget,
Yes.
and,
You
okay,
vote up or down.
got it, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
thank you.
When that comes up in what, 4 weeks?
No, next 2 weeks.
Right,
2 weeks, I'm sorry.
Okay.
thank you. Appreciate everyone's conversation there.
Is there anything else in the township?
So what are we
Board
on?
budget? Township board budget we were
I
on.
think that's what we were on, so I think, or anything else on, before we move on to supervisor?
Just give me 1 minute, make sure I
Remember what's in what budget.
I know, it's hard to find.
Professional development,
Did I get my?
we're changing that, or?
Yes, we are.
It didn't go away.
That's good. Anymore.
Yeah, I changed it,
Yeah.
I just wondered if we had to have a vote like we did here, or not.
So, Renee was asking, since we took a vote on this particular item, whether to maintain the budget or not, do we need to take a vote on increasing the travel education for the board? And then when we took it to 1,000, I think we did kind of vote, but we didn't make it a formal motion type
Well,
thing.
We don't need to.
I would say
I don't know
if
why
it's
we
a,
needed
if
to on
it's a
this
soft agreement in your discretion, you update the budget and present it to us, I don't think there's gonna be any opposition.
Okay.
So we can, I mean, that's certainly an
that's fine.
option.
I thought we were just getting consensuses, not doing hard votes.
Well, you know, I think there, on anything that
If
is
it's
gonna be
contentious.
contentious, we should probably
Right.
do
Okay,
that,
I
so we
agree.
Fair
just
enough.
save
I
time.
agree, that
Fair
way you've been able to, you know,
Everybody gets to voice their,
yeah, you know, you're not holding up the whole budget for one
Right.
item, right?
okay. All right, supervisor, did you find something? 'Cause
No, I'm good,
Okay.
thank you.
Supervisor, any questions on that one?
Yes.
What did I hear? Yes, yeah.
I,
Trustee Hayward.
where did, it looks like there was a elected official salary moved.
Yes. Yeah, so I did move, so I took that for all of them, and here's the rationale for that. It didn't go away, it got moved up into salaries. So I looked at some other township budgets and everything else, they have that as a lump sum. And it wasn't so much because of that, the reason we did it, we have some timing issues with the budget. There's some things that we have to be able, we have to get this budget out to you, the trustees, as early as possible. The challenge with that is that we have not yet had the employee reviews. So in there, you know, part of the challenge is to say, okay, do we hand out the budget and have you be able to see, and then bless you, and then have the employees be able to come back in and figure out what their raise is gonna be or not be, right? So there's some timing issues in there that we wanted to make it a little bit more challenging. You know, we didn't want to have that thing, we didn't want to have the conversation about the employee raises and that until we had the employee review. Because sometimes it's good, sometimes it may not be so good, and they deserve to have that one-on-one conversation. So that was in part why we just kind of branded it in there altogether.
And I'll just piggyback on that for the board. This is I was happy to see this. And I got a small department, so there's only 3 of us. Within putting in the wages for the employees and myself, you're putting in 9 different entries because you're doing 3 years and 3 employees. Well, that's just 9 for me, because everyone's got to be broken out with whatever that increase was. Take that and now spread it out across all the other departments.
Yeah.
The salaries themselves, the board's already set the ranges for them back November of '23. That's already blocked off of what those are. You guys were part of it, and we set the salary ranges. So individual information can certainly be gotten by the trustees, but this is a lot better way to do this from in BSNA when you're trying to put the budgets in.
So the other thing, just, I'll call you on in a second, Sam. The other thing to be of note, you may have noticed that, well, I know Sam, Trustee Marco, you noticed that the coffee, it looked like the coffee was cut. Right? Now, it's not because
What?
I don't drink coffee. What happened is that particular, the way it used to be done, vendor names were put in there, and they're PGL. Well, vendors come and go. The problem is BSNA holds them for the next 3 years, whether there's a amount in the budget or not. So it just makes things overwhelming. And the way it was done is that you would have the amount for, every time you see one of those years up there, there's actually a separate entry for each one of those. So every single line item you see has the potential of having a minimum of 3 line items, plus whatever the notes section may entail. So a part of being able to go through and streamline this and be a little bit more efficient was going through and saying, let's get off the employee names because they come and go. Let's get rid of the vendors because they come and go, and just put it into the broader category. Good. Trustee Morocco.
So the reason that it's important to me to know whose salaries are what and whose name is who is because the only power the township board has over the supervisors' hires and fires is we get to control whether or not their position gets funded or not. So if there's a position that he's created that we don't see value in, that's the only avenue we have to eliminate that position or any director's position. So,
You have the board has the power at a couple different points in time, right? So you said a new position. New positions, as far as have the HR, I can create a new position, but it has to be approved by the board. And along with that comes the salary. So for example, Paul alluded to in 23, all the salary ranges for the directors and all that were based on that study, and they have to stay within that. Okay. The other area that you have control over is the department budgets. You do not have the authority to go down to the employee level and target them. You don't have that authority.
No.
You can go at the budget, and the only reason why I say it that way, Sam, is because you said I wanted to know the employee name. So I wanted to be clear that that is not a
Well, it
function
could have
of the
been a
board.
director, could have been a deputy, could have been anybody who,
Only at that level, because that's the level that we do need to come in front of the board for salaries. If we were going through and saying we have a laborer in the park, and that budget's been funded for that department, we don't need to come into the board to ask for that position to have that salary. It was based on that category. And it's a very important little distinction. You ultimately have the right, the board has ultimate right at the end of the day to defund it to whatever level, but you cannot target an employee and specifically say, I'm gonna defund that department by this much because I know it's that employee.
when I talked to Renee, I was referring more to the position, because there could be positions in the township that we could see value in eliminating as part of budget talks.
Yes.
And not knowing what that positions and that dollar amount that goes with that position and those benefits, you need to know that information. So when you're making,
If you're still talking higher level and you could have like 4 people in that position, if you're the same position, I agree 100% with you. If you're targeting an individual, then I would disagree with you.
Well, and to trustee Morocco's point, in the 2025 budget, you have, deputy supervisor X, budget operations analyst X. So it's it's relative to the position, right?
Typically,
And so,
yes.
so I think the argument is, because it's bundled in, and, I'm not in any way suggesting, you went and exceeded the statutory authority to give raises. But we don't know, it's just a big number that's bundled together. So how do we, asking to chime in and to be fiduciaries of this process, how do we know? But what you're saying is, we ask next year and we'll get more of a delineated by position?
Yes.
Okay.
so if I don't see a
It's like-
value in an
That's-
operations
And
analyst.
that was my first thought when I was looking through this was, there's a lot of zeros and there's just these bundled numbers. It's important for me to know what these positions are. I'll give you an example. I looked at the custodian, and I was like, how does this person make a living? Or, and I Googled like what the average salary was, and it looks like you got a raise and so on and so forth. But I'm like, this person, my view, give a little love because it's the lowest.
It's a union position.
Well, I think that,
Oh, okay.
We can't just raise them up.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, it was helpful to know relative to the position, and to know if it would, and it's in the middle of the pack relative to what the average, doing my little homework, the average salary was. That was very helpful to have that, but that was one person, so there wasn't 12 people in that department to bundle together.
And I would say that in the future, I'd like to know who, what all the positions are and what they pay, but I think that discussion of whether we see value or want to share that with you at the budget talks should not be in public. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, we do, yeah, there are some
Because there's
concerns along
hundreds
those
of
lines, too.
positions in the township, and if we're talking about what positions we think warrant spending funding over here or doing this, it's a legitimate ask, is that we know it's just as much as if you're spending it on coffee or you're spending it on a third, data processor, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that, if there's such a thing, so that's where I'm going with it, is you do need, that is one of the few things we do get to,
Yeah, you absolutely
we
have
do
control
get to
over
have
your
some
chart.
say over that
Yeah,
stuff,
for sure.
you know what I mean? So, we just didn't have that
Fair enough.
information in this, the way it was presented.
Include an org chart with wages.
Just kind of a general question for all the departments, kind of a broad HR. What is our cash in lieu of health insurance payment? I think I know, but with the I wanted to, do you know what that number is?
So if you elect not to take the health insurance, and we do have a lot of spouses that work here, both of you have to not take it. Okay, no one can be on it. So you get $2,000. $3,000.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
3,000, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure my eyes were connecting
But
with
I
the
want
right number.
yeah, I know that.
Say that again, how it works, only one can,
So if you are married, and we do have some individuals here that are married, if you have a spouse who does take it and puts you on it, you don't get the 3,000, because you're covered by the township under insurance. So it's not a function of who, my spouse has it, so I don't, so therefore I get it, but yes, I am covered under theirs. So, you clearly have to be not taking any insurance from the township, period.
to get that.
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah, married couple, one is getting a premium paid by the township, and the other is getting zero, but the benefits of the
Yes,
health package.
exactly.
Okay, and just another curiosity question. I see there's compensation for vacation, so may they, on an annual basis, turn in unused vacation days?
Up to a certain amount of
40
time.
40 hours.
40 hours?
Yes.
Okay, and that's based on salary?
And
et cetera.
then there is some PTO payout as well. That's at a half rate over a
Okay.
certain number of hours. So there's a formula to it.
Okay,
And you
so
can
there's
carry
no
some over to the next.
I was gonna
year.
ask, what's the carryover?
Mhm.
No.
120 hours.
120
Yeah.
for vacation or for PTO?
PTO.
PTO, got it, thank you.
I believe
Fires,
fire has a higher buyout rate. There's 5,000?
no, theirs is actually 2.
Well, I thought theirs
Yeah.
was higher.
Their buyout rate on leave time is higher,
Oh, not their medical.
not their
So that's where I
yeah.
got two from.
So fires is lower, but that's also negotiated as part of their contract.
So if in this document, there's a, employee's name saying they're getting the healthcare buyout, we should assume that their spouse also is getting the healthcare buyout?
No, that's just one per family.
So they either get
But
the
I'm saying
benefit
it-
or the buyout?
Pardon me?
They get the benefit or the buyout, but only one?
Exactly.
They don't
right.
each get one.
No, just one or the one.
Got it.
You're a unit. Think about it, you're treated more like a unit,
Got it.
not an individual. You're a family unit.
Okay, cause in that, whether they're in the union, not in the union?
It doesn't matter, it's,
Cause in
almost,
here, there's some people I saw were getting the cash buyout, but you couldn't see their spouse's status.
it depends
know.
on who was, some of there could be initially who was the one who had the insurance. So for example, if we look at Clerk Newbeck, her and her husband worked here, but he went to part-time. So, at that point in time, it was who was the insurance originally under. So that could have been what you're looking at, I don't know specifically,
Well,
If you could tell me the
in
page,
my
I'd look at it.
scenario, and I'm not gonna say who I was looking at, but in the scenario I'm seeing, I would assume that if you're saying that only one of them gets the buyout, that neither of them are on township insurance.
Correct.
Which would seem very odd if you work at the township, that you're not taking,
Well,
nobody's taking the township insurance?
It
I mean, is
depends
that
on.
common?
I
That-
mean, there are individuals that work here that have retired from somewhere else that have lifetime health insurance. And so they're covered under that, and they don't need the insurance here.
Okay.
And so there are scenarios where that could be playing out. I mean, yeah, if they were both in their thirties, that would seem very odd, but it's an election. You know, you're not forced anymore. ACA does not enforce the penalty for not having insurance. So it's a choice. Probably not a good one, but
I thought you got to have one spouse with township insurance and the other one got the $3,000. in
No.
lieu of
We
that.
eliminated that.
One or the other.
there used to be in years past, that used to be the case. And I think when I came in, I said, no, that seems to violate the spirit of what we were trying to do with that. And I think only one person got impacted by it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the supervisor?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed this. I think this is under Township Board.
Well, you can't go backwards.
This is a softball, I think.
All right.
Contractual services, NRIP, that's a neighborhood road improvement
Mhm.
program, right? I see $100,000 reduction. I know that was extremely popular and there's a wait list. I'm assuming that we're not eliminating that, or are we?
We are, and that would have to be something that would be one of the things that we would need to bring back to the board. The reason being, the rationale behind that is that the NRIP program was supposedly funded by the Waymaster fees
Right.
and all that. Well, after we looked at all the fees and figured out how they calculated, because the monies were going into different pots, Renee and I figured out that at the end of the day, we weren't coming in, we were actually losing money. Because of the time that the attorney was charging on any of these Waymasters, the courts are the biggest percentage winners in that. And then you back out all the court costs by the attorneys, there was pennies on the dollar. Based on the original motion, I think I went back and looked at, the argument was is that, hey, everybody talked in terms of gross of what the fines were and all that, but that's not what the township was netting in. So one of the things that we would need to look at is if we want to fund that, we don't have a revenue source that really funds it to the tune that it was there, and therefore we need to bring it back and have that addressed at a future meeting, which was one of the things that I was gonna be bringing back.
Got it. Thank you.
So you're saying that's not,
The
this is
NRIP
the program where we contribute a certain amount to subdivisions who do their own paving?
Not the engineering study aspect of it, not the actual paving. Right, so the NRIP went to more of the engineering type studies programs. And then we use the other, there's the other program that helped offset the paving costs.
Do we have the $250,000 annual amount that we
Nope.
have in a thing that we
Nope.
can, we don't have that money anymore?
No, we've never had that money, we were always pulling it from general fund.
I understand that, but the program was available because we do have some subdivisions that you can get, up to 10% or something, not to exceed 25,000 per, there was a,
There's still 100,000 in here for
I
that.
was gonna say, you reduced it.
It's not gone away, but,
No.
and it wasn't 250, it was
It's not
200.
okay, and is that still, we're still funding
And
that?
NRIP is still there.
Excuse me for not
Yes.
seeing it all in there, but that is a program I'm passionate about because the roads are deteriorating. We have to be more creative with incentives, but within reason, and that seemed reasonable.
Yeah, so the main point of that is that the amount that we thought we were pulling in from the Waymaster really didn't exist. So, because the courts and the attorneys ate up all the money. So. Now, because I can feel Kelly behind me.
Yeah, he's sweating back there.
I'm evil-eyeing him
Because
for you.
Kelly's sitting there back there going, well, that darn Chuck, he got me to do it on a retainer, and we all know that it was much less than the previous attorney was charging. So there's probably a little bit more money in there than what was going in there before, because the Kelly firm came in with a very aggressive bid on that.
Very helpful.
Yeah. So I apologize.
I just want to make sure that incentive program
value and
wasn't
down.
completely deleted. Some years we only used 7,500 hours of it.
Yeah, and I
not
think those days are gone. I
200,000.
think for right now, we're gonna get a rush on it. I mean, I did get some emails on that recently. And, I think we need to, when we look at the NRIP as a suggestion, that we can address later, but my thought would be is that, we need to really come up with a much better program for the residents on the paving and the engineering, you know, marry those two programs together and figure out how to deal with that and fund it going forward.
Yeah.
Which I do have some ideas on, and I will be bringing forward to the board
And
later.
just briefly, on that program, the thing I'm referring to is like, there was a subdivision over off of Clarkson, I forget the name of it.
Wingate.
Wingate, thank you. Where they're, instead of tearing it all out, they're doing, you know, repairs annually up to 60,000-70,000 out of their own pocket, and then we were flipping them $7,500, you know, $6,500 to help them, and I think that,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, and I think-
worthy of, that little bit's worthy of doing it, you know?
Yeah, it's, you know, the only challenge I had in there, and again, was that, the funding mechanism, again, was primarily supposed to be through, the Waymaster fees, and when that stopped happening, really, it's coming out of general fund, which means all the residents are really funding it, and so, therefore, I thought that needed to get cleaned up.
Okay.
Other questions?
Good.
So,
Make
can we
sure my
jump
notes-
back forward then and go to information technology?
That was a tough one for
Sounds
me.
good.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I don't even know anything about it.
Yeah, so, just so I can, let me give you a quick little thing here, because I don't want to, there's probably other things we could go in a little bit deeper. On the information technology, one of the things that we're probably gonna be doing different is that we are going to be billing the services to the departments. That has not been done historically, and that is to try to make sure that, you know, for example, DPW, you know, they have a lot of funds tied up in the enterprise fund that can only be used for very specific things. Something like this is a way to be able to access some of those funds, to be able to cover some of these costs, since they're recipients of it. So it's probably more to bring things more in alignment by utilization. So if you're looking at some of these numbers in there, that's why you see some big drops in there, because we really allocated part of that cost to other departments. Okay.
Yeah, no, if I may, I like that, in line with the attorney's fees, right?
Right, exactly.
Allocating in
Same thing.
accordance, and, you know, Department A is getting laptops every 2 years, Department B is making due every 4 years. Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
a good change.
Because we have to fill out work tickets and all that.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Board of review, I mean, that's fine again. Anything? Okay. Assessing, that one's a pretty straightforward one too. I mean, you know, we're at AAS and that's a straight fee.
I did have a question on the attorney piece. I saw Moriata, and then I also saw Kelly Firm. They both retained, or is that, did I read that incorrectly?
I don't think that Moriarty should be in there.
Like, again, I could have read it wrong. I'm trying to get to my assessing section here. Here we go. Where is it?
The only thing, no, I don't, no, because everything has been turned over.
It's
Right.
still, her name is still under the underlying
History.
future years.
But is it zero?
The amounts are zero,
Okay, so that's
but
one
not,
of those.
not for 2025. 2025 had,
Yeah.
wait, 2026, no, there's an amount on it.
Is there, how much is it?
Yeah,
20
read
grand.
like this.
100 grand.
20 grand.
20.
Did you say a hundred?
It's 20, it's on page 71.
Oh, the name is still there.
71. Do you have page numbers?
Yeah,
The online
the,
one does.
the online one has them now.
Oh.
I wish
So that's-
Well,
so-
that would have been,
So when I was talking about having to go into individual lines, this is what I was talking about, where for every one of these, every year had another name, and so this cleanup really will improve this process.
we should have, so think about the Moriarty should be gone. And it, you know, if we were gonna put it, we would put Kelly Firm, but I mean, if we're gonna use a name, but we're not even gonna do
This
that.
is legal counsel.
Typically, that, what Moriarty did, their firm did, was they dealt with it at the state tax tribunal.
Right.
And so those were the costs and the budget for the state tax tribunal. And I think that when we do this, we're gonna change that to the state tax tribunal attorney fees.
It's like the coffee thing, right?
Yes, exactly right. Same thing.
You don't leave your attorney vendor in there.
Oh, here we go, yeah.
I
This
mean-
is what I saw right here.
Got it.
Well, it's because it's legit, it was there.
Yeah.
If you could read on an angle.
Yeah, good catch.
Anything else about the assessing? Okay, let's move over to Township Hall. Anything on Township Hall?
Let me see. Give me a minute.
Having the packet on the screen is almost useless. You can't find any of it on the screen. You know, it was like, because he's got it on the online version. I have it in the
PDF.
in the packet
Yeah.
version that doesn't have page numbers on anything. You know, it's almost impossible to reference it off the computer. you
Yeah.
know?
No, the screen does have the page numbers.
No, the book doesn't tell us what it's saying.
No, but he's looking at his computer.
Oh, he might be on the agenda, not on the packet.
I have a quick question,
page-
silly
Yeah.
question.
Which one?
That's a page number right there.
Postage,
He's got page numbers.
For
Go
which
ahead.
one?
Sorry.
for operating
Oh, let
costs
me see if it
for,
says them on this
just
blue
had it so
page.
Township
big.
Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all
It's
there.
like, we don't budget anything and then you spent 10
Should we start
grand
over?
and we're back to not budgeting anything.
This thing was
I
a
have that
brain
correct.
teaser, man.
So do you have page numbers?
Got it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's
On
just,
the online.
Page
It's-
number
it's
9,
just
but
tricky.
according to this here.
We allocate the postage,
Yeah,
at the end of the year based on the department use.
okay,
So we purchase the postage and then allocate that based on whoever goes in and puts their code in
okay,
and uses that. So that's why you see it,
got it. But there's no
Influx.
budget for it because you don't
Yes.
really know how much you're gonna, got it, okay. Yep. So the postage is in a pool
Yes.
and you guys just grab from it,
and then each department
kinda like the lawyer used to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
Mhm.
uses their code.
Okay.
it. Anything else on town hall? Okay. Legal.
Is he gonna come up?
Yeah, go ahead. Trustee Tevin.
Where's the presentation?
Clarifying question. Is Mr. Keenan still doing our prosecutions? I thought,
No.
okay, cause he's
Is his
down
name
for
still in there?
125,000.
Okay, so is that for,
Prosecution,
in what year?
26.
Okay, so again, that should have been something that
Just
should have
that
been
cleanup.
changed out.
Important cleanup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Worked hard to
You
get
gotta
that
drill down
straightened
into
out.
BSNA, couple of levels to get to that.
Gotcha. Or just look at
Okay.
this.
So you go,
And
you
again,
go
we-
put it in the
you know,
budget
Adrian,
number,
uh,
gotta go
I
somewhere
don't know
else.
what
put it in
page
the
I'm on.
name,
I'm
so-
under legal,
No,
the
okay.
first legal
Got it.
fee section.
Anything else under legal?
It's page 93.
93. That where he was at?
So what I just whispered was, we made a mistake. The Keenan should be lowered significantly, because the Kelly firm did it on a retainer basis. So it was almost cut in half. So that was where, when we were looking at the contracts and we discussed them for who's gonna get what, when we really looked at the hourly rate only told one part of the story. The other part of the story was how many hours should they bill? And that's where we realized that the previous attorney was billing exponentially more than what the Kelly firm was willing to come in at a retainer level.
They were billing
So-
more than we budgeted for the whole year, because
Yeah,
we did a
well-
budget amendment at the end of last year
Yeah.
for 25% more.
Yeah.
Well, I'll never use him for that, but if someone was
Yeah.
just spending like
So there
crazy.
was some justifications, or there was some plausible explanation
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
But yes, particularly that issue right there on that line item was a mistake. It was an oversight on our part. We are fixing it.
Did that just generate revenue?
It did just
Less
just take
expense.
off about $60,000 out of the budget, so we decreased the budget by about 60.
And where'd you put it?
We put it in your pocket, Sam.
You got another shirt.
Which is,
That's what I'm talking about
I
right
don't think-
there. Now we're getting
I
somewhere.
don't think we voted for that.
That got me a coat.
uh,
Winter's coming.
anything else on the legal? All right, how about on the human resource? I know she's here.
Waiting all this time?
I've been waiting all this time.
Well, we'll go easy then.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on the human resource side?
How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Well, you've stuck around a while. I'm glad to
Yeah.
see that, so that's a good sign.
Thank you, thank you.
You're in a new office and everything,
Mhm.
upstairs on the other side, so. good. I don't have any questions for her.
Okay. No?
Slam dunk. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Drainage? Any questions on the drainage?
Is that the Sashabaw drain, or what is, why is there, what is that?
No, that's, Director of DPW will come up and
Swim drain.
explain drainage.
Just drainage.
He has to be up here for the next couple of minutes.
You got a page number, Renee, on that?
Drainage.
Drainage?
Drainage for.
10.
Did you get one of these?
Just
Sam,
type
did you get one of these?
I guess you were asking, what was this particular?
Oh, right here.
Type Control F
Yeah, but
at the same time.
for this, he's wanting to look
Type drainage.
at this.
For the Sashabaw drain?
Oh, like
That's
all
correct.
the, like, where it
He wants
corresponds
the
to the blue
detail.
section,
Yes.
got it.
Okay, all right.
He wants the drill down section.
All right, now we're getting somewhere. I gotta get deep diving into Dave's drainage budget.
Drains at what? Chapter 20, drains.
Well, why don't we start with line 1?
Miscellaneous drain repair.
What is it,
Yeah.
Dave?
The
Tell me-
drainage?
Yeah.
So, okay, there's a couple pieces to this. So, here in the township, there's 3 drains that we are assessed by Oakland County to maintain. Okay, there's the Kelly, the M15, and there's another one. We also have the Sashabaw Regional Drain, which
Really?
is under our control. That's what we have to take care of, we maintain, we totally maintain on that. So, with the drainage on the ones that were assessed on, there's a budgeting that goes in general fund. When I want to account for yearly assessment that they assess they assess the township, we pay for maintenance on that.
One of which is, we are looking to turn back over to the county, or turn over to the county, which is the Sashabaw, regional drain.
This one.
Yeah, we're trying to get
Did
it
these
to.
people all pay separate on like an SADM too?
Yeah.
Well, there's no funding coming in today. It was originally funded that way, but the SAB lapsed, I think, or whatever, right?
Correct. It was never, there was an original assessment to build it, but the assessment was never continued for maintenance. We brought it up many, many, many times in my career here so far, we need to start assessing. But the reality of it is as a drain as a whole, Public Works is not, we are not geared up to maintain a drain like this. It's a big drain. It's gonna go on the other side of 75.
Yeah, will the county take it over?
So we've been working with the Carlisle Waterman Group, and Dick was the one who actually started, our first job was on the Drainage Commission for Oakland County, I think he told us, and he likes to say. And so we're believing that we're gonna be able to get that back over to the county, get it over to the county to pick it up. If not, then we're gonna probably have to do an SAD on it and start charging everybody on the drain to get it fixed.
Can you
Because it
force
is
that?
causing some issues. There are issues when it rains heavily, whether, whether you wanna blame the Walden stuff behind us, or
Blame
even
the
further on the
sediment.
other side of 75. The low point gets down there past the golf course, and that's really where it kind of ends. But yet, the water still flows through a couple more lakes, ultimately ending in Townsend Lake. And so there are some flat areas where there's not any culverts or anything, and so it just tends to flood and spread, and so there's definitely some work that would need to be done. So if we can't get the county to take it, then we're gonna have to probably come back and levy an SAD.
Can we force that on the people?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about this, in depth, and we're pretty confident the county will accept it as a Chapter 20 drain.
Yeah.
For too long, probably right after the first year, we'll come to the board, because it starts with the board members to agree to us to petition the county to accept that drain as a Chapter 20.
And just real quick, even though this is off subject, would that trigger any offshoot retention ponds being regulated or maintained going into the drain? Because, I think a lot of the problem we're having is the sheeting water issue and lack of capacity to stay on sites and things like that. That's
So I can't answer that.
Okay.
I really can't, I'm sorry.
It's not part of the budget discussion,
I
thanks.
really don't know.
Okay. Other
Okay.
questions?
You feel good about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Streetlights, any questions on streetlights? They're nice. Cemetery, any questions on cemetery? Again, these are all pretty small,
Is
pretty
that ran
straightforward.
through you or through you
Streetlight sense.
and the cemetery?
Mhm.
Are we close to capacity?
Lakeview's probably got, we increased capacity at Lakeview, when we built those columbariums for niches. It was a good project, a great project, so we probably have 300 available in there, plus 450 full burial spots left at Lakeview.
Did we build that mausoleum,
At Lakeview?
the one that they're building? Now is that a different cemetery, the one on
Maus-
Maybe Road?
That's not ours.
Well, that's not.
That's not,
Okay.
the cemetery on Mavy's ours, behind the church and all that, but.
No, you mean the one up.
He's
further
talking
east.
I'm talking about the other one, that's.
Oh,
that's not one of
no,
ours.
that's
Is that
City of Pontiac, yeah.
Ottawa, is that?
The Ottawa
what you
Park,
call
yeah,
it?
City of Pontiac owns that one.
Okay.
They built that a long time ago. Okay, any other questions on that? You're still on here, aren't you? If it's all right, since he's sitting here, can we just, no, you're not
I
actually,
think, I
no,
think I'm done.
you're done.
All right, thank you much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Operating transfer out, any questions on that? That's just the things that backfill some of the ones we've already talked about. Okay. The general CIP fund, any questions on that one? No? Okay. CIA, that fund, just as a little bit of not obvious in the numbers, that hasn't had any activity for a little while. We are meeting with annually the CIA has to come in front of the board. We will be doing that presentation, I think, at the next meeting, the board meeting. And it looks like, it would be my preference that we keep the CIA going. So, that'll be part of what we're gonna try to do. We are gonna have to probably get the county to agree with it. I've had some conversations with Woodward. He's kind of feeling it out a little bit to see if that's something, because the county will have to sign off on it, as you know, with the DDA process.
Yeah.
Very similar with the CIA process. So we are working down that road. If not, and there isn't an interest, then it becomes a little bit less attractive to keep it going. But we'll know more probably in the next month. The North Sashua Debt Service Fund, I mean, again, that's a pretty straightforward one. Any questions or comments on that? All right, getting down to it. The DDA fund, is there any questions or comments on that? I feel like I'm going faster than Jim, then you can find
Well,
stuff, so just
yeah,
tell me
well,
to slow down.
Yeah. No, I think I'm good on this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the last one is Walter Lake Fund. That's it. And on a little one? Any questions? No. Okay, so I am going to ask one last time for any comments or feedback on both the content and the process. Having this be the first one that Renee has not done, we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody up there to, because again, we know we take your responsibility serious, and we want to, 41 pages is tough. So.
Just that, there were a lot of days when we couldn't go into the executive room upstairs to get coffee because the door was closed, and we were locked in there with directors. So, just kidding. Let the directors know that, really appreciate the effort that got put in this. I've been through more than a dozen of these, and this has gone really well, so.
Thank you. I'll let them know. And for those that are still here. Trustee Malva.
I like the process a lot too. We got to see this ahead of time. You talk to everybody. Part of our job is to trust the people in those positions. They're the ones who work with us day to day. And, to get through it was a long night, but it didn't drag on for, 2-3 meetings worth of budget, so, kudos to everybody who worked on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Yeah, down there in the,
Who's first?
trustee Hayward.
Oh, thank you. No, I just echoed the same sentiment. I think this book was, I just remember, and I know you and I have had conversations about what happened last year. We were just like our first meeting, it's like somebody going line by line through every single thing in this book, which is, I don't know. This seems to be much better. We had an opportunity to look at it way ahead of time, so do we have any questions? Obviously, we still had extra ones that came up, but I think so far that this process was a much better one, and having all the directors here just to answer the questions right away, it was certainly more streamlined than in the past, so.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Trustee Ted.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the process, the back and forth. It was very healthy and good. Now that I've kind of gotten used to it, and I know we'll put some page numbers, maybe make it a little bigger, that would be certainly helpful in getting through it, because of course all of us want to be thoughtful and reflective of this important work. It's maybe the most important part of our job is getting the budget right and being good stewards of our residents. Let's see, and then just, I think it would be really helpful, because I understand the logic behind why you don't want to put some of your major initiatives into the budget. But I know part of the reason for the aggressive cuts is not only to see where we can sharpen our pencil, but I'm assuming to justify what you're bringing before us. I think it'd be really a healthy exercise if you could bring those next week. I'm not saying in terms of getting into the details, but the name of said initiative, a brief description, and the monetary cost. Certainly not going to impact my vote on the budget in any respect, but I think that'd be a healthy part of this overall exercise, is to know, for me to know, the board to know, and the residents to know what's coming our way. Because at this point, it's sort of like very ambiguous concept. I'm just hearing words, but I don't have any details. And as a board member, I'd really appreciate having those details. Certainly by next within the next meeting or two.
So to that end, internally, when I say internally, when I talk to employees at the monthly staffing and all that, I say that 2026 is going to be a building year, and I mean that from the sense of the fact it's going to be a building year. Some of the projects I have no problem coming through and starting to give the high level on. Do you understand that one or two I can't at this point yet because of just where we're at in some of in the process, right? I mean, there's not anything firm yet, and it's not even worth having the conversation. And if we do, we've actually had some conversation with one or two of them that said, look, I don't want anybody to know that we're trying to deal with. They don't want anybody to know at this point in time that they're even having these conversations. But they are gonna be most of those are pretty far down the road in the sense of the fact that I think within the next, and I think I said earlier, within probably the next 5 board meetings, that everything will be all out in the open. I just need to, from a timing standpoint and everything else, there's 1 or 2 that I'm probably gonna have to hold back. But yes, as far as the other ones go, absolutely. You're 100% correct in the sense of the fact that a big part of what I was looking at in getting that budget down was to figure out how to finance these. To me, we're gonna be looking at going through and financing these projects, where ultimately, at the end of the day, it is my goal that it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime on an annual millage basis. So we're gonna be able to do it all through the savings, and we're gonna be able to finance it that way. That's the goal. A couple of them, I'm still working through to figure out what exactly that's gonna look like, but at the end of the day, it should be zero cost to the township, which I know is gonna be interesting for you guys wanting to see, and that's also the reason why I wanted to more deal with them in isolation, each one, so you understand the components of it and how it all works and how it all looks, and then be able to step back and say, okay, now I get it.
Zero additional costs.
Zero additional costs, right. Yeah, zero additional costs, right. So.
And again, looking to the future, 27, 28, we're gonna be incurring potentially some significant costs through our union negotiations.
Yes.
Have you factored that into, because you can't just take 2026 in a vacuum for again, having no idea where you're going with your ideas, but in anticipation that these are multi-year financial burdens in aggregate, and so I'm just, have you factored in 27, 28 and beyond into your calculations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, as much as we can with the idea of what those contracts are gonna look like.
Well,
and so
right,
forth.
but we can anticipate a
Yeah.
healthy increase, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
right?
you will.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything else for Renee?
Thank you, Renee.
Yes,
Thank
thank you, Renee.
All right, then I'm gonna leave it
Great
here.
job.
Thank you very much, Renee. All right. Moving on, we have communication future agenda items and reports. Report, we have the building department, October 25th, fire, August 25th, or 2025, sorry. Fire department, September 2025, Oakland County Sheriff's Office, September 2025, zoning board of appeals, October 1st, 2025, election commission, September 2nd, 2025. Any board member comments? Nope, okay, I'll close.
Adjourn.
Can I get a motion? Okay. All those in favor?
2 seconds.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.